Boss Mag! The door opened, and Mon's bleary eyes immediately snapped alert at the sight of Mag. He abruptly turned, and yelled into the yard, Boss Mag is here! Demon! Anna took a couple of steps backward in fear and almost fell over. Don't be scared, big sister Anna. Bald head number 2 isn't a baddie. Amy hurriedly supported Anna and offered words of comfort. How could you be so careless, Mond? You're scaring the kids. Is that something that we lava demons should be doing? SAHDR emerged with a stern expression. However, that was soon replaced by a smile as he turned to Mag, and said, Hello, Boss Mag and Amy, why have you come here this late in the night? He then turned to Anna with a bashful smile, revealing rows of pristine and even teeth as he said, Hello, little girl. Mond isn't a bad guy. He's not too handsome, but you don't have to be scared of him. Keel and the others also made their way to the entrance. All of them looked outside with curious expressions, but they refrained from approaching Mag's trio upon seeing Anna's fearful expression. However, the bald, burly, and intimidating SAHDR wasn't any more likable than Mond, so his words didn't soothe Angus's fears. Instead, she sidled up even closer to Amy, and looked on with fear at Mag and SAHDR. The ones that had been hunting them down this entire time were demons, so why had Mag taken her to a den of demons? Was he trying to sell her? Don't be scared. They may be demons, but they're not bad people. There are good demons out there. Mag offered gentle words of comfort to the fearful and wary Anna. Not bad people. Anna looked into Mag's genuine eyes, then into SAHDR's eyes. Her grandfather had once taught her how to identify whether someone was good or bad, and he had told her that one's eyes couldn't lie. She couldn't see any ill intent in SAHDR's eyes, so he was indeed different from the demons that had tried to hunt them down. Big bald head isn't a baddie. He even helped us beat up baddies in the past. He may be very ugly, but he's surprisingly a good person. Amy nodded to support Mag's words. Am I supposed to feel good about that? SAHDR's expression was a little peculiar. In any case, he was already used to Amy's unintentionally sharp tongue, so he turned to Mag as he asked, Do you need us to do something for you, Boss Mag? Feel free to tell us if you're experiencing any difficulties. We'll definitely help you to the best of our abilities. Mond and the others all nodded in agreement. Their eyes were filled with benevolence and even a hint of fanaticism as they looked at Mag. I do indeed have something that I need your help with. Mag nodded in response. He passed the lunchbox in his hand to SAHDR, and said, We're trying to save some elves who have been captured by a demon hunting party. This is your reimbursement. Boss Mag, there's no need for reimbursement when employing our services. Are you looking down on our burning legion? We can't accept this. SAHDR shook his head and tried to reject Mag's lunchbox, but his words suddenly cut off as he caught a whiff of the contents inside. Is that the scent of the holy Rugiamo? That's right, there are Rugiamos inside. Mag nodded with a smile. Oh! All of the lava demons' eyes immediately lit up upon hearing that, and they turned to stare at the lunchbox in unison. That's... Boss Mag, you're far too kind. You didn't have to. Even though that was what SAHDR was saying, he had already taken the lunchbox from Mag and was hugging it tightly to his chest. He then said solemnly, Boss Mag, your enemy is the enemy of our burning legion. That's right. We'll *CK them up, the lava demons chimed in. Then I'll have to trouble you tonight. Mag smiled and nodded. Let's go, burning legion. SAHDR yelled as he raised the lunchbox high above his head. For the holy Rugiamo. All of the demons chanted in unison, waking up all of their neighbors in the process. Mag wanted to bury his face in his palm. They clearly had a badass name, Burning Legion, so why did they insist on chanting such an embarrassing slogan? These demons really were quite adorable in their own unique way. For the holy Rugiamo. Anna was also looking at the lava demons with a surprised expression. She didn't know what Mag had just given them to prompt such a vehement reaction, but it appeared that he really did have no intention of selling her. Instead, he had managed to convince these demons to fight other demons with them. That was quite extraordinary to her. "Don't you guys want to eat some before we go?" Mag tried his best to suppress his laughter as he turned to Sargeras. "No need. We'll have some when we begin the initial charge. Regiamos can significantly enhance our combat prowess, and it's quite dark, so we can use the lava flames activated to light our way forward." Sargeras shook his head with a bashful smile as he asked, "Boss Mag, where are those bastards right now? We'll go kill them. Only Anna knows their location, so we'll be coming with you. Let's set off right away." Mag helped Amy and Anna back onto the bicycle, and looked back at Sargeras with a smile as he asked, "You'll be able to keep up, right? Don't worry about us, Boss Mag. We'll slow down to match your pace," Sargeras replied confidently. "We'll see about that." Mag shook his head with a mysterious smile. He then began to pedal his bicycle, and it shot forth like an arrow. "Holy F***ck. What's Boss Mag riding?" Sargeras' eyes widened as he tucked the lunchbox under his armpit. He then picked up the foldable chair beside him, and yelled, "Let's go." It took Sargeras and the others quite a while to arrive after Mag had parked his bicycle at the northern city gates. They weren't extremely out of breath, but it clearly hadn't been a leisurely jog for them, either. "Boss Mag, what's that thing that you're riding? How could it be so fast?" Sargeras was staring at Mag in disbelief. He didn't think that Mag could beat them in a contest of speed. "This is a bicycle." Mag smiled in response. His physical condition was better than even that of the most professional cyclists in his past life. When riding a top-grade professional bicycle like this one, his top speed could easily exceed 100 km per hour, so he held a significant advantage when traveling over flat terrain. However, he wasn't going to waste time on such explanations. He got onto his bicycle again, and said, "Let's keep going. If we get there too late, they might have left already." After making their way out of the city, the road began to become bumpier. Under Anna's guidance, Mag quickly abandoned his bicycle and continued on foot. Soon, an abandoned village appeared up ahead. "Boss Mag, is that the place?" Sargeras wore a very excited expression as he handed out Regiamos to his companions. "Hurry up! Gather together all of the piggies that can fetch a good price and prepare to transport them through the underground passageway. Kill the rest and don't leave any behind." Within a large courtyard, Terry was hurling instructions. He forced himself to maintain a calm and collected expression, but there was undisguisable panic in his eyes. He was originally already supposed to be on his way to the Demon Islands. However, Olaf suddenly received news earlier in the day that the location of their base had been exposed. Thus, Terry was told to remain behind in order to deal with any potential changes that could arise. Meanwhile, Ebenezer led a group to hunt down that old elf and the little brat before Olaf also departed. Terry had just been told by a subordinate that something had happened to Olaf and the others, and that someone could be on their way to raid their base very soon. Olaf was the leader and supporting pillar of their entire hunting party. Ebenezer was more powerful than Terry too, so the loss of those two struck a heavy blow to their party. However, these circumstances also made him the most powerful and high-ranked being in the entire hunting party. As such, there was a hint of excitement intermingled with his panic and horror. If he could take over the rest of their subordinates, and then sell off all of their piggies, he would become the true leader of the hunting party. In the underground cellar, demons and orcs held flaming torches as they tugged violently on the hair of the elves. The young and elderly elves were split up, and if any of them moved even slightly too slow, they would be struck by a whip or kicked to the ground. However, the elves maintained an eerie silence. Their expressions were blank and dead, and they would only utter light groans even when they were struck by whips. There was no light in their eyes at all, and it was as if they were a horde of zombies. "Don't blame me for not going to save you, boss. You can only blame your own terrible luck. I'll be sure to sell off all of these piggies for you, and I'll also look after your hunting party in your stead. Terry rested his hands on the banister as he looked at his subordinates and the elves down below. His heart rate was accelerating, and there was a hint of a demented flush on his face. Big baddies! Hurry up and surrender. Otherwise, we're going to come in. Right at that moment, a tender voice sounded from outside. What was that? Terry asked with furrowed brows. Master Terry, there's a human with 2 piggies outside, yelling in front of our gates. One of the piggies seems to be that little brat that came with the old elf earlier today. An orc quickly delivered a report. How many people do they have? Terry asked. Just 3, there's no one else, the orc replied. Is there anything special about that human? Terry asked. Not really. He looks just like a normal human, and he's not even carrying a weapon. The orc shook his head in response. Hee, little piggy, I was thinking about going to find you, but who would have thought that you'd deliver yourself to me? I'm going to kill all of you to avenge Boss Olaf. A sinister smile appeared on Terry's face as he quickly strode over to the gates of the courtyard. He then turned to the orc and demon's guards, and commanded, Open the gates. Mag's trio was situated over 10 meters away from the gates. Amy turned to look up at Mag with a perplexed expression. Father, they're not too scared to open the gates, are they? Anna looked at the large courtyard before her, and was struck by a hint of fear and sorrow. She and her grandfather had come here this afternoon, thus resulting in them being hunted by those demons and orcs. They could be. Mag looked on with narrowed eyes. These guys were most likely on high alert and in the process of transferring their forces elsewhere. This abandoned village was very secluded and difficult to find. With only a rough direction as a guide, it would most likely take a very long time before the Grey Temple could find this place. Little brats, who gave you the courage to come here to your deaths? The gates were opened, and Terry strode out from within, followed by a few orcs and demons who were carrying flaming torches. All of them had their eyes fixed on the 2 little girls accompanying Mag Liang Jingru 1. Mag nodded with a serious expression. Terry raised an eyebrow as he looked at Mag with narrowed eyes. Who's Liang Jingru? Is she a powerful being from the human race? They had to have some powerful backers. Otherwise, why would this guy try to raid their base with these 2 little girls? We're here to save the elves. If I were you, I'd release all of the elves in captivity as quickly as possible. Maybe we'll consider sparing your lives and offering all of you to the Grey Temple then. Mag's voice carried an undertone of warning as he spoke. That's right, big baddie. You should all hurry up and surrender. Otherwise, I won't spare you. Amy nodded with a serious expression. Terry burst into laughter upon hearing that. He looked at Mag with a sinister smile, and said, Do you think I'm an idiot? All you're doing is offering yourselves up as a midnight snack for me. Those 2 little piggies should fetch a high price in the Demon Island's black market. Lu Sun Tu once said, people always like to use their shortcomings to attack others in an attempt to divert attention away from those shortcomings. Mag looked at Terry, and sighed as he said, Look at your fat pig head. What gives you the confidence to name elves piggies? If we had to find a pig here, you'd be the one that bears the most resemblance to one. You. Terry's eyes widened with rage, while the orcs and demons beside him struggled to suppress their laughter. Father is so amazing. Amy looked up at Mag with reverence and admiration in her eyes. She discovered for the first time that her father was also very crafty with his words. A smile also appeared on Anna's face, and her nerves were soothed significantly. That demon really did look like a pig. With that image in mind, he wasn't all that scary to look at. Damn you, human! I'm going to kill you! Terry roared as he transformed into a berserking magic boar. He absolutely detested others referring to him as a pig, that was the most scathing insult to him. His eyes immediately turned red, and 2 massive tusks sprouted from his mouth as he charged toward Mag's trio. "I'm very disappointed in you." Mag shook his head before raising a hand as he yelled, "Burning Legion! Attack!" SAHDR's booming voice erupted. "For the Holy Rugiemo!" A loud and synchronized chant sounded as a bunch of flaming lava demons rushed out from the nearby forest. All of them were holding a Rugiemo, currently in the process of stuffing them into their mouths. SAHDR led the way from the front, wielding his foldable chair in one hand and holding the remaining half of his Rugiemo in the other. He came crashing down like a flaming meteorite, and swung his chair violently toward Terry's head. One Liang Jingru is a Malaysian Chinese pop singer with a popular song named Courage. 2 An extremely iconic Chinese writer, essayist, poet, and literary critic. The foldable chair was the most powerful of the 10 most dangerous weapons in this world. Mag had always been of that opinion. Using a folding chair in battle presented a combination of unbridled power, as well as technical and aesthetic prowess. SAHDR was worthy of being referred to as the premier chair wielder in the world. As such, he couldn't help but nod in appreciation and approval at the sight of the chair slamming into Terry's face, which was twisted with shock and horror, sending him crashing into a wall. The rest of the lava demons instantly destroyed the remaining orcs and demons. A crushing victory was secured in a very short span of time. Wow! Anna's eyes widened as she looked in awe at the lava demons. The demons and orcs that had appeared to be so terrifying to her were so pitifully weak in the face of the flaming lava demons. In contrast, the terrifying lava demons suddenly became quite adorable in her eyes after she witnessed them vanquish the accursed demons and orcs. Thus, the fear that she harbored toward them in her heart completely disappeared. Amy's father is so awesome. He can recruit the help of so many demons just by using food. All he has to do is stand and watch. Anna turned to look at Mag with reverence in her eyes. SAHDR swatted aside a few demons who were trying to close the gate with his foldable chair. He then plucked Terry up from the ground and tossed him in front of Mag. He stomped a foot on Terry's back, and said, "Boss Mag, what do you want done to him?" Terry had been slapped so hard by the foldable chair that his head no longer even felt like his own. Even though his combat prowess was slightly lacking, he was still a 7th-tier demon. He had only ever suffered this feeling of being beaten so convincingly and comprehensively when he had sparred with Olaf. Lava demons. After returning to his senses, Terry finally managed to identify their assailants. The lava demons had once been a legendary subspecies of the demon race. They were very powerful, and possessed extraordinary flame manipulation abilities. They used to be one of the top 3 subspecies of the demon race, and even though they had been on a constant decline since then, he had to admit that lava demons were close to invincible among beings of the same rank. There were so many lava demons present, and what was even more incredible was that all of them followed the orders of a human. "Don't kill me. I was forced into this by Olaf. I actually feel really sorry for those elves as well." Terry turned to Mag with a panicked expression, wondering what Mag's identity was. "Knock him out, then throw him in a sack. The Grey Temple will take care of him." Mag couldn't be bothered to listen to Terry's lies. Thump. Terry's voice was abruptly cut off following a dull thud. SAHDR picked up his foldable chair and looked at Mag with a bashful smile as he said, "Boss Mag, there are still a few of those bastards inside. We'll take care of them first before you come in." "All right, thank you for your efforts." Mag nodded with a smile before glancing down at the motionless Terry. SAHDR hadn't held back at all with that blow to the head, so he didn't even know if Terry was still alive. SAHDR led the lava demons and charged into courtyard, cleaning up the rest of the demons and orcs. All of them were knocked out and thrown into rucksacks with ease, and soon, a large pile of rucksacks had been gathered at the center of the courtyard. "What's going on up there? You two, hurry up and go have a look." The commotion in the courtyard soon reached the ears of those in the underground cellar, and one of the demons barked some nervous instructions at his subordinates. He was aware of the situation, and knew that if the Grey Temple really had discovered their base, then no one would be able to escape. Is someone here to save us? The elves who were being treated like animals had also heard the commotion up above, and a hint of hope lit up in their soulless eyes. What's going on over there? Several kilometers away, there were many people searching for the base of the hunting party. Blower was among them, and he suddenly raised his head as he turned in the northwestern direction. He could see dazzling flames erupting in that direction, along with the sound of explosions and combat. Those details were particularly clear in the dark and silent night. He had only been detained in the Grey Temple for a short while before Ingwe came to bail him out. There was an abundance of evidence and witnesses, so Blower and Sally were quickly deemed innocent. As such, they were both released on the scene. Blower requested that the Grey Temple send out a team to find the base in which the elves were being held captive. As an elven ambassador, Ingwe could speed up the process significantly, and following some brief medical treatment, Blower and Sally accompanied a team of Grey Temple investigators to search for the base. However, the location that Joshua had disclosed prior to his death was far from specific. The area 5 kilometers to the north of Chaos City was extremely vast, and finding a base in that area was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Even Blower was gradually beginning to lose confidence, wondering if they would be able to find the base before the orcs and demons had evacuated. That place is also within the range of our searching scope. We should go there right away. Sally had already begun to rush toward that direction. I hope that's actually the right place. Blower also quickly followed her lead. He was very anxious. If that fire had been intentionally lit by the demons and orcs to burn down their base, then they would have most likely already evacuated the scene. Follow them. Brandley of the Grey Temple issued a command to the rest of the investigators. Elf trafficking was a practice that Chaos City stood firmly against. Elves were very important to both the Grey Temple and Chaos City, so they took this incident very seriously, particularly as it had taken place so close to Chaos City. Father, can I go and help? Amy was very eager to join in on the battle. Boss Mag, everyone in the courtyard has been taken care of. The rest of them should be hiding underground. Would you like to come down with us? SAHDR asked with a smile. Yes, yes, yes. We'll come with you. Amy immediately raised her hand in response. All right, then, we'll have a look as well. Mag nodded. He gently held onto the hand of Anna, who was gripping the hem of his shirt with a nervous expression. He grabbed onto Amy's hand with his other hand, and led the two of them into the courtyard. There was a huge pile of sealed rucksacks in the courtyard, and an occasional groan of pain could be heard coming from within them. Mag was stunned by the Burning Legion's efficiency. From battle to capture and packaging, the Burning Legion provided an all-in-one service that was both reliable and fast. Thus, their group continued on toward the underground cellar. SAHDR walked at the forefront, and the flames on his body lit up the inky black underground passageway. Amy held her wand and followed him with excitement shimmering in her eyes. Mag walked behind Amy with Anna's hand in his, carefully surveying their surroundings. Stop. If you keep going, I'm going to kill all of them. Right at that moment, a trembling voice sounded from within the underground cellar. There were two flaming torches lit in the depths of the inky black underground cellar. A stickly thin demon with a black horn on his forehead and a pair of dark green eyes was holding a little elf girl hostage. There was a sharp bone blade protruding from his hand, resting on the little girl's throat. A thin red line had already been drawn on her skin as the demon looked at Mag's group with a twisted expression. There were about a dozen or so weapon-wielding orcs and demons behind him, and all of them wore expressions of shock and horror. They didn't know what had happened above the ground, but the fact that these people were able to make it into the underground cellar indicated that their brothers up there had most likely already been wiped out. What was even more terrifying to them was that their enemies were being led by a lava demon, followed by a human and two little piggies. Behind them was a horde of even more lava demons. The most powerful being among them was a 5th-tier Zweig, but he clearly stood no chance against these assailants if they had already taken out the 7th-tier Terry. As such, they could only hope to turn the tables by using the piggies they had captured. All of the elves who had been imprisoned and tortured for an extended period of time turned to look at the approaching party. They were feeling quite fearful at the sight of the flaming lava demons. If they were to be rescued only to fall into the hands of a group of even more terrifying demons, then that would further compound their nightmare. However, they then quickly noticed a little half-elf behind the lava demons, upon which their eyes immediately lit up. Her purple magician robes looked very lavish and regal, and even though she was only a half-elf, her intricate features and pointy little ears bore a strong resemblance to those of a true elf. Of course, that wasn't the important point. What was worthy of note was that a half-elf little girl had appeared here. Could it be that these people really were here to rescue them? The heinous demons and orcs who had tortured them like animals were now trembling in fear. That was something that the elves had never seen before. However, they were still being held by these demons, and sharp weapons rested on their vitals. If a conflict were to arise, they didn't know how many of them would lose their lives. Even so, they weren't fearful of death. In comparison with being tortured in this dark underground cellar, then becoming lowly slaves deprived of their freedom, death was a sought-after release. At the very least, they could see a glimmer of hope up ahead. If their deaths could buy the freedom of their brethren, then they were willing to pay that price. Mag was holding a cuboid object in his hand. He looked at the eyes that were shimmering with renewed hope in the underground cellar, and a heavy expression appeared on his face. The passageway was lined with cages that were less than a meter tall. Some of the elderly elves confined in those cages could only curl up into balls due to the cramped space. The air carried a musty scent as well as an extremely foul odor. The tattered clothes on the elves' bodies were covered with all types of filth, and it was very difficult to imagine how the predominantly misophobic elves had survived in such conditions, and how they were able to withstand the physical and psychological torture of their confinement. Rage began to ignite in Mag's heart. Even though the elven race was one of the masterminds engineering Mag Alex's downfall 3 years ago, Mag had a good impression of the vast majority of elves. It could be said that they were Amy's half-brethren, and they predominantly loved peace and nature. They were one of the most amicable races on the Norland continent, but they were being treated like lowly animals. SAHDR's eyes were also burning with fury. He was a demon himself, but the lava demon race would never stoop to oppressing the weak. However, these demons were clearly different from them. They had no moral compass to guide their actions, and had no qualms about imprisoning and humiliating these elves. The main issue was that those elves were being held hostage, and their lives could be taken at a whim. The lava demons could easily crush these orcs and demons, but they weren't confident in their ability to save all of the elves, so they didn't dare to act rashly. Zweig heaved an internal sigh of relief at the sight of a wary SAHDR. He could sense that this lava demon was the most powerful of the lot, and was most likely the leader of the group. Seeing as he cared about the safety of these piggies, he could use them as bargaining chips to ensure their own safety, as well as perhaps other things like riches and resources. With that in mind, a smile appeared on Zweig's face, and a hint of confidence welled up in his heart. He looked at SAHDR, and yelled, "You had better not try anything funny if you want to save these piggies. Otherwise, my blade will slice through her neck in an instant. You only have one choice now, and that's to. All of you baddies should die." Right at that moment, a mellow voice sounded. Amy glowered at Zweig as she stood behind SAHDR. Her staff had already appeared in her hands, and purple and golden light was crackling like lightning in the oracle stone. "Hat!" Zweig gave a disdainful chuckle at the sight of Amy. He didn't pay any heed to her. A little piggy like her clearly posed no threat to him, so all he had to do was to focus his attention on SAHDR and the other lava demons. "Ice Soul Lotus, Ice Seal Domain." Amy pointed her staff at Zweig, and dazzling white light appeared. A glittering and translucent lotus flower emerged before appearing directly above Zweig in the blink of an eye. The air temperature in the entire underground cellar instantly dropped over 10 degrees. The ice lotus hovered above Zweig and his companions, and a layer of frost appeared over their bodies. All of them were immobilized as if time had been stopped. The smile on Zweig's face stiffened, and an expression of shock and horror appeared in his eyes. The bone blade in his hand trembled slightly as he attempted to free himself from this immobilization effect. However, right at that moment, a red cuboid object suddenly flew through the air before striking Zweig in the face with unerring accuracy. Blood splattered in the air, and Zweig's body fell back uncontrollably. The bone blade resting on the little elf girl's neck was also hurled aside as a result, and he thumped to the ground with wide eyes. Even in the split second before he fell unconscious, he was still unable to figure out just what that red cuboid stone was. Burning Legion, kill them! Sargeras faltered momentarily upon seeing that before immediately charging forward while brandishing his foldable chair. One demon or orc was felled after another with each swing of his chair, and all of them were subdued in the blink of an eye. Not a single elf was harmed during the process. You deserve a brick. Mag stepped forward and picked up the red cuboid object, which turned out to be a red brick. It's here. Blower and Sally arrived at the large courtyard. There were large footprints as well as signs of explosions and battle that could be seen in the courtyard. Magic waves and a scorching aura remained in the air, clearly indicating that a fierce battle had just taken place. Blower and Sally both wore wary expressions. They were still unsure of whether there were more powerful demons in this hunting party, and from the signs of the battle, it appeared that the ones who had stormed the courtyard were no less powerful than they were. They weren't sure if this third party were friend or foe, so they had to be careful. The two of them slowly approached the courtyard with their wands clenched tightly in their hands, ready to unleash spells at a moment's notice. Whoosh! Blower unleashed a flare spell, and a white ball of light exploded, lighting up the entire courtyard. Hey? What's this? Blower and Sally had already prepared themselves for battle, only to be stumped by the sight of rucksacks strewn throughout the yard. The large rucksacks were clearly all full, and an occasional groan could be heard coming from within them. Why do I get a familiar feeling from this place? Sally's brows furrowed with confusion. The battle here had just concluded not long ago, and nothing remained aside from these rucksacks. Blower opened a few rucksacks to check their contents, and his brows also furrowed with confusion. There are demons and orcs in here. These guys should be members of the hunting party, but they've been knocked out. Who could have done this? Tie them all up first, then see if there are any other places that they can hide. They can't have gone too far, and we haven't found any of the captured elves yet. Brandley was panting slightly as he issued those instructions. As a magic caster, his physical fitness was slightly lacking. I can hear something from that direction. Sally listened in silence for a moment before pointing at a certain corner in the courtyard. It's an underground cellar. The elves could be there. Let's go down and have a look. Blower quickly rushed over to that corner, where there was a passageway leading downward. The wall showed signs of being scorched, yet he didn't hesitate in the slightest as he descended. Sally looked at Blower with a complex gaze before also jumping down into the passageway. Station a few people outside. Everyone else, come with me. We can't let any demons or orcs get away. Brandley also jumped down into the passageway with his wand in his hand and a wary expression on his face. The demons and orcs in the underground cellar had been taken care of. Amy dispelled the ice soul lotus in the air, and the temperature gradually returned to normal. With the effect of the scorching heat radiating from the lava demons, the elves who had been frozen solid quickly regained their mobility. They looked around at their fallen tormentors with blank expressions as if they were still struggling to comprehend what had just happened. You're all free now. Amy stepped forward with a joyful smile. Her words exploded like a clap of thunder in the minds of the elves, and their eyes widened in unison. A myriad of emotions that they had not experienced for what felt like an eternity welled up in their hearts, and they erupted into raucous cheers. Some elves wept for joy, while other elves embraced each other. After suffering through countless torment, they had finally recovered their freedom. Many of them turned to Amy with gratitude, admiration, and even a hint of reverence. Isn't that what Princess Irina had said when she had rescued us? Nothing has been heard about her for over 3 years, but is there finally someone who's going to save us in her stead? This little girl is a prodigy. An elderly elf stared at Amy with a scorching gaze. Even though she appeared to be quite young, the fact that she was able to unleash such a powerful spell at her age made her worthy of the title of a super prodigy. If she really wanted to dedicate herself to freeing captured wandering elves, it wouldn't be long before she forged a reputation that was just as brilliant as Princess Irina's. The scene of Amy using her magic to immobilize everyone was absolutely stunning. Many of the elves had also realized this, and were looking at Amy with a fervent light in their eyes. Amy is so powerful. Anna was also staring at Amy with wide eyes. They were both only little girls, so why was she so exceptional? She turned her attention to the freed elves, and a smile appeared on her little face as she murmured to herself, if Grandpa could see this, he would be really happy as well, right? Mag silently stowed away the brick in his hand. It was a weapon that could be used interchangeably between 3 modes. The edges presented 1.5 times damage enhancement, while the corners could deal twice the damage. Bricks were a must-have weapon for travelers, and had many uses. At the same time, they were very portable, and could ensure speedy attacks. They could also be hurled as long-ranged weapons as well. Even with the advancements in military technology, the brick was still considered to be the go-to weapon for many minimalist travelers. At least, this was what Mag was trying to convince himself of after spending a copper coin to purchase this brick from the system. A smile appeared on Mag's face as he looked at the reverent expressions directed toward Amy on the faces of the elves. If half-elves wanted to receive acknowledgement from the entire Norland continent, then they had to start by securing the approval of the elven race first. It would be unrealistic to expect the dogmatic views of the Wind Forest to be changed in the immediate future, but the wandering elves were a different story. In their eyes, anyone who could protect and rescue them was worthy of their reverence and praise. That was a blueprint that Mag was unfurling today. If these elves could return to the Wind Forest with dignity one day, perhaps their attitude would be able to influence the entire elven race. This was very important. Of course, Amy's happiness was even more important. And indeed, Amy was very happy to see so many pairs of admiring eyes and to receive so much gratitude from the freed elves. She had never been praised and thanked by so many people at once in the past, and it meant even more to her as those genuine words were coming from elves. No need to thank me. I only defeated some bad people. It was Big Sister Anna and her grandfather that led us here. Amy waved her little hands in a slightly overwhelmed and embarrassed manner. Anna. Boss Mag. And Amy. Blower's surprised voice suddenly sounded from behind them. The flames on the bodies of the lava demons lit up the pitch-black underground cellar. There were unconscious demons and orcs strewn all over the ground, as well as elves with tattered clothing celebrating their newfound freedom. Aside from them, there were also Mag, Amy, and Anna. Blower was very surprised to see this. It appeared that they were already late to the scene, and that all of the elves had clearly already been successfully rescued by Mag and the others. Furthermore, from the grateful and reverent expressions that they appraised Amy with, it could be presumed that she had played an instrumental role in the rescue mission. In contrast, the sight of the wounded and disheveled elves who had been locked in cramped cages dealt a heavy blow to his heart. He had heard rumors about them back in the Wind Forest, but seeing them for himself still made his soul tremor in shock and fury. The rage surging through his veins made him want to kill all of the unconscious demons and orcs on the ground. Boss, Amy. Sally was also quite surprised to see them. She didn't think that she would encounter them here, and was even more shocked to see that they had already successfully rescued all of the captured elves. At the same time, she finally knew why she had been struck by a familiar feeling earlier. It was due to the fact that she had sensed the auras of the lava demons. Her gaze then fell on the elves who had been stuffed into cages like animals, and her brain went completely blank. There was only an incessant ringing sound in her mind as she took in the scenes around her. What was most difficult for her to swallow was that the ones who had inflicted this torment upon her brethren were the so-called noble elves in the Wind Forest. They had done so just to satisfy their own greed and desires. Furthermore, she was one of them. She had enjoyed all of the benefits that they had during the past 2 decades, and she had once made it her target to convince all of these wandering brethren to return to the Wind Forest. She had never detested her identity so much before. She hated the elven laws that she had once regarded as a sound and appropriate set of regulations. Beneath the grandeur and lavish lifestyles enjoyed by those from the major families, there was a dark underbelly that made her want to throw up. How demented would someone have to be in order to ally themselves with their enemies so they could reduce their own brethren to slaves? Boss Mag. Brandley had also arrived on the scene with the Grey Temple investigators. He caught a glimpse of the scenes in the underground cellar, and a furious expression also appeared on his face. All of the elves backed away with wary expressions at the sight of the newcomers, particularly when they saw Blower and Sally. "Big Sister Aisha, Big Sister Zixie, you're late." Amy giggled joyfully as she turned to look back at Sally and Zixie. She then turned back to the elves, and said, "Don't be scared, they're not bad people. Big Sister Aisha and the others are also here to rescue you. Looks like Boss Mag and little Amy have beaten us to it. You are today's heroes." Blower's emotions were quite conflicted. He was relieved that the elves had been rescued, but also quite ashamed that someone had to do his job in his stead. However, he was still happy overall that the elves had been saved. He had been concerned that they would be transported elsewhere or put through even more torture, but the situation was clearly much better than what he had anticipated. "Anna asked us to come here." She recalled the way to the base, and as the situation was quite urgent, I could only ask Sargeras and his companions for help. All of the demons and orcs have been taken care of, but the elves are all carrying injuries. Perhaps you can help us treat them. Mag explained the situation to everyone, and intentionally downplayed his own contribution to the rescue mission. "Hee, Amy did all of the work. We just tagged along for moral support." Sargeras chuckled bashfully. "I am Brandley from Chaos City's Grey Temple. The Grey Temple is taking this matter very seriously, and will provide all of you with the assistance that you need. If you would like to go to Chaos City, I can provide protection on the trip there." Brandley stepped forward, and instructed, "Get the elves out of the cages first. Everyone skilled in healing magic, come forward and administer treatment to the elves." Amy's explanation and Brandley's words soothed the frightened elves. The Grey Temple personnel smashed open the locks on the cages and rescued the imprisoned elves. The magic casters who were skilled in healing magic immediately began to administer treatment, but progress was very slow as most of them weren't very powerful, and there were over 100 elves in the cellar awaiting treatment. "Madam Aisha, are you all right?" Zixie made her way over to Sally with a concerned expression at the sight of her pale features. I'm fine." Sally returned to her senses, and shook her head with a blank expression. "Looks like they'll need our help. Some of these elves are very severely injured, and there are a lot of them too. I won't be able to handle the situation on my own." Zixie turned to the elves with a sympathetic look. Sally turned to the injured elves with a painful and conflicted expression as she thought to herself, "They became like this because of me. What right do I have to help them and accept their gratitude? I'll leave you to it, then." Zixie looked at Sally with a meaningful expression before making her way over to the injured elves. She and Lulu had traveled the Norland continent for several centuries, so she had some knowledge of these events. Blower looked into Sally's eyes with an earnest expression, and said, "During the years that the princess was away from the Wind Forest, she destroyed many hunting parties that targeted our elven brethren, and rescued countless captured elves. Under her watch, there were virtually no demons or orcs that dared to touch the wandering elves on the Norland continent." A flash of light seemed to have appeared in Sally's eyes, clearing away the conflict and confusion within. She turned to Blower with renewed focus, and nodded firmly as she said, "I agree to your proposal from last night." After saying that, she quickly strode over to an elderly elf who was lying on the ground. After a brief conversation, green light hovered out from her wand and fell on the wound on his chest. The wound quickly healed, and color gradually returned to his face. Things went smoother than I expected. She really is a good girl, although still not as good as me, of course, Blower thought to himself as he looked at Sally darting around from one elf to the next busily. With the inclusion of Sally and Zixie, the rate at which the elves were being healed sped up significantly. The elves with more severe injuries were prioritized, while those with only light injuries were led by the mag and the others out of the underground cellar. Phew! After returning to the surface, the night was still pitch black, with only the stars and the moon providing any light. However, the freed elves still heaved long sighs of relief as they breathed in the fresh air outside. Many of them began to sob uncontrollably. "Are you seeing this, Grandpa? They've been freed," Anna murmured to herself as she looked up at that bright star in the sky. The elves' injuries were treated very well, and Zixie used grass and leaves to stitch together simple items of clothing for them. The clothes were quite crude, but still much better than the tattered and putrid clothes that they were wearing. "I also want to learn healing magic. That way, I'll be able to help heal them as well." Amy looked on with a serious expression. Thank you all so much." The elves were full of gratitude toward their saviors. They had recovered their freedom, and their injuries had been treated. They were dead on the inside, but had been granted a new life. Thinking back to their torturous days spent in the underground cellar, they couldn't believe they had managed to survive that harrowing experience. Many of them had their attention fixed on Amy. She was a half-elf, but she had won them over with her display of power. Furthermore, her declaration of freedom had tugged on everyone's heartstrings. They began to miss Princess Irina as well as the days when they didn't have to worry about being hunted down. She was only a small little girl, but perhaps one day, she would become the new elven savior of the Norland continent. "You're all welcome," Amy replied happily as she put away her staff. "Boss Mag, is there anything else you need our help with?" SAHDR asked as he chomped on a Rugiemo. Mag patted Amy's head with a smile as he responded, "Everything is already done. I thank you and everyone from the Burning Legion for your efforts." He was very pleased with these allies that he had gained through the use of Rugiemo. "You're far too kind, Boss Mag. We'll be going back now, we still have to do missions tomorrow." SAHDR rubbed his bald head with a bashful smile, and waved at Amy as he said, "We're going now, Amy. Bye-bye, bald heads." Amy also waved farewell to them. "By the way, the Rugiemo was really delicious." SAHDR left a parting remark with a bashful smile before leading the lava demons away. The Burning Legion was like a group of walking red flames as they made their way through the night. Amy yawned before looking up at Mag, and asked, "Father, when are we going home to sleep?" About that, Mag turned to look at Anna, who was still looking up at the sky in silence, and gently asked, "Anna, will you come back with us tonight or go with him?" "Anna, Joshua asked me to look after you as his final wish. I'll be sure to treat you well." Blower made his way over to Anna, and looked into her eyes with an earnest expression. "Big sister Anna, if you come with us, you'll have a soft little bed to sleep on, and a lot of toys to play with. Most importantly, you'll be able to eat super delicious ice cream and other dishes every day." Amy was trying to tempt Anna into coming with her and Mag. Anna looked at the genuine Blower, then at Amy's expectant gaze and Mag's gentle expression, and was very hesitant. Mag was feeling quite sympathetic toward Anna as she was quite a pitiable child. However, he cared more about what Amy thought. If she didn't like Anna, then he definitely wouldn't take her in, as that would only prove detrimental to both little girls. However, it appeared that Amy seemed to really like Anna. "Little Anna, if you'd like to, you can also come with us. I'm Zixie, and this is Lulu. We really like kids too." Zixie made her way over to Anna with an amicable smile on her face. Anna grappled with internal conflict for a long while before mustering up her courage as she turned to Mag. "Can you please teach me how to cook?" "Hey!" Mag was slightly taken aback by that request. He didn't think that she would be interested in becoming a little chef. Anna was 2 or 3 years older than Amy, so she was also about half a head taller. Even so, it would still be very difficult for her to reach the kitchen bench even if she were to stand on a small stool. As such, it would be difficult to teach her to cook. Blower and the others also wore expressions of surprise upon hearing that. They looked at Anna, then at Mag, wondering how he was going to reply. "Of course you can learn if that's what you really want," Mag replied with a smile. Amy was clearly more interested in magic and eating than cooking. At the moment, he had the right to have 2 cooking students. One was Yabimiya, but the other spot was still vacant for Anna to take. "Thank you." Anna's eyes lit up with elation. She turned to Blower, and asked, "If I go with you, can I still go to Amy's restaurant to learn cooking?" Blower hesitated momentarily at the sight of Anna's expectant gaze before nodding as he replied, "I'll be staying in Chaos City for the upcoming period of time. If you want to learn cooking, I can take you to the restaurant every day." "All right, then I'll go with you. I believe in Grandpa's choice." Anna nodded as she looked at Blower. "What a pity." Anna was slightly disappointed. She then looked at Anna, and asked, "Big sister Anna, can you cook for me once you learn how?" "Of course I can." Anna nodded in response. "Yes. That way, we'll be able to see each other regularly." A joyful smile resurfaced on Amy's face. She latched onto Mag's hand and swung his arm from side to side as she said, "Let's go home, father." "Sure." Mag picked up Amy in his arms with a smile on his face. He respected Anna's decision. After all, Joshua had entrusted her to Blower prior to his death, so this was what he would have wanted as well. Even after making that decision, Mag didn't leave immediately. Instead, he turned his attention to Brandley. The Grey Temple personnel made a rough tally of the elves at the scene. Due to the fact that the incident had transpired quite close to Chaos City, there were even elven inhabitants of the city among the victims. As such, the Grey Temple was willing to offer basic living needs to these elves in Chaos City. At the same time, the Grey Temple guaranteed their safety. If they wanted to permanently settle in Chaos City, they could submit an application, which would grant them residency upon being granted. None of the elves made a decision on whether they wanted to do that on the spot. However, none of them refused the offer to head to Chaos City, either. After being held captive in that nightmarish cellar for so long, they needed a safe place to rest, even if it was just to have a good sleep. After everything was said and done, Mag carried Amy in his arms and departed with Zixie, Lulu, and Sally. He rode his bicycle back to the restaurant, and Amy had already fallen asleep by the time they reached their destination. "What a kind and adorable little girl." Mag smiled as he gently carried Amy upstairs and tucked her into her little bed. After brushing his teeth and washing up, he lay down on his bed and closed his eyes. His consciousness entered the test field for the god of cookery as he said internally, "System, I want to learn how to make beef kebabs." "Boss, our restaurant has closed down for 3 days and been listed as an untrustworthy restaurant by the Catering Association. All of our customers have turned on us, what do we do?" A restaurant employee looked at Ricky, and then at the empty rotisserie with a concerned expression on his face. "It's all that accursed Mamie restaurant owner's fault. If it weren't for him, our rotisserie wouldn't be reduced to this state. We'll reopen for business starting from tomorrow. However, we'll need to think of some other ways to recover our reputation." Ricky was in a very foul mood as he reclined in a large chair. "Boss, do you already have a plan in mind?" The employee's eyes lit up with anticipation. "We won't be able to get onto the Aiden Square Food Competition Rankings Board anymore, but didn't you say that his restaurant has been very popular recently? We'll just have to steal his popularity." Ricky chuckled coldly in response. "Steal his popularity? How are we going to do that, boss. The employee was perplexed. Of course we'll be doing so using our forte. Didn't you say that his restaurant doesn't have any roast meat? A sinister smile appeared on Ricky's face. Do you need something? Blower got down from his horse-drawn carriage in front of the Elven embassy, and was surprised to find that Sally was waiting for him nearby. Yes, Sally replied with a cold expression. Blower helped Anna down from the carriage with a smile as he said, Anna, go in with Grandpa Ingwu. Someone will help you wash up and change you into some new clothes. Ingwu took a glance at Sally before walking into the embassy. All right. Anna nodded before curtsying at Sally. She looked up at the Grand Embassy building before making her way inside behind Ingwu. Blower turned to Sally, and asked, What do you want to say? Sally looked at the smiling Blower, and discovered that her former image of him had completely crumbled. In the past, she had thought that he was the epitome of a vain and lazy rich boy. However, the courage he showed in the face of Olaf and his urgency when searching for the base couldn't have been feigned. He truly did want to help the elves that were suffering on the Norland continent. Sally was silent for a moment before asking, Did you know that this was going to happen beforehand? Would you believe me if I told that I knew about all this when I was just 10 years old? Blower wore a guilt-ridden expression as he said, When I was a young boy learning how to ride a horse, I had a lame elven servant who looked after my horse. He was a middle-aged elf of few words with a slave brand emblazoned on his face. At the time, I took joy in ridiculing and pranking him. I would whip him over the most trivial mistakes or force him to race me on foot while I was horseback. I didn't think that I was doing anything wrong or inappropriate at the time. Everyone from the major families was doing the same thing. What happened after that? Sally asked. After that, he had his good leg broken over a small mistake, and was thrown out of the estate. It was pouring down with rain that day, and I was coming back home after playing with some friends. I caught sight of him sobbing in despair in the heavy rain, and I was frightened. I was suddenly struck with a sense of guilt, and asked him why he was crying. He looked at me for a long time, and his tears suddenly subsided as he told me his story. He told me that he had survived the war among species, and that even though he was only an ordinary elven warrior, he had slain demons and orcs that had invaded the Wind Forest. Following the conclusion of the war, he chose to leave the Wind Forest to wander the continent. However, he was captured by demons and orcs 20 years ago, and one of his legs was broken in the process. He then became a slave to the Baybilly family, suffering horrendous abuse at the hands of my family members. He told me that the same tragedy had befallen most other elven slaves. After finishing his story, he picked up a long sharp rock and thrust it into his own heart. Blower's voice was very calm, but his tightly clenched fists betrayed the true extent of his emotional turmoil. He looked at Sally, and said, Do you know what his final words to me were? Sally pursed her lips in silence. He told me that freedom is the soul of an elf. Without freedom, an elf will die and the elven race will fall. A wry smile appeared on Blower's face. The two of them looked at each other in silence, basking in the cold moonlight. After an extended silence, Sally asked, What's your plan? I want to return freedom to our elven brethren. Not only do I want to protect the elves wandering the Norland continent, I also want to save the elves being oppressed in the Wind Forest and the elves who have lost their souls under the rule of the major families. Only then will the elves truly be saved. Blower's expression became quite animated as he took a step forward. At the same time, he lowered his voice slightly, and continued, Also, if I'm not mistaken, the princess has also been trying to do the same thing in the past few years. Back when she was roaming the continent, she had slaughtered the hunting parties until they almost ceased to exist. She holds an extremely revered position in the hearts of all of the elves outside the Wind Forest. However, the first thing she did after her 3-year-long self-inflicted seclusion was to kill Schubert and convince the Queen to abolish slavery. If she wants to completely abolish a system that has existed in the elven race for the past few decades, she's inevitably going to face strong backlash from the major families. It would be difficult to weather that storm on her own. Hence, the plan I propose is to gather the wandering elves to create a powerful force. At the same time, I want to gain as much power as possible among the major families as well as the entire elven race. When the princess truly lays the cards on the table, we can act as her main supportive force in opposing anyone who dares to stand in her way. We can save the entire elven race. Blower's breathing was accelerating, and a hint of fanaticism appeared in his eyes. Sally's eyes also lit up upon hearing that. As someone who had been selected as a princess candidate by Helena, she had her own judgment and insight on Blower's plan. The events that she had just witnessed had completely turned her world upside down, thereby making her approve of Blower's vision. I can fake an interest in you so you can receive more attention and power in the Baybilly family, but your two brothers are already preparing to inherit the family. If you want to overtake them in that race, it'll be a very difficult endeavor, especially when you're planning on remaining in Chaos City for a long time. Sally contemplated the situation momentarily before continuing. Also, the princess was able to draw reverence from the wandering elves as she's very powerful, and doesn't have to worry about any doubts or criticism directed at her from those in the Wind Forest, but if we want to obtain more power within those families and the elven race, then we have to at least pretend to side with them. My two half-brothers are both idiots. If I wanted to compete with them, they would have no chance at all. You only have to give the nod, and I assure you that I'll be able to win them over in half a year. Blower shook his head nonchalantly, but a concerned expression then appeared on his face as he continued, "But you're right. We can only set things into motion from behind the scenes, we can't lead from the front. We need to find someone who is powerful enough and can receive the same level of adoration from our elven brethren as the princess once did." The two of them both fell silent for a moment before their eyes lit up, and they yelled the answer in unison. "Little Amy! Amy!" A white light flashed, and Mag entered the familiar kitchen. At this moment, there was a long metal bench positioned in the very center of the kitchen, upon which was strapped a black cow that was close to 5 meters in length. It caught sight of Mag with its large eyes, and suddenly began to struggle violently. The metal bench began to tremor as a result, and it appeared that the cow would be able to break free at any moment. Holy F***ck. Did you really need to bring in an ironhide bull just for some kebabs? Mag immediately stepped back with a fearful expression. Ironhide bulls were 4th-tier magic beasts due to their iron-like hide and violent nature. They were very aggressive creatures, and would often attack unprovoked, making them one of the most troublesome magic beasts for hunters and mercenaries to deal with. The ironhide bull had powerful defensive properties, so killing one would take a very long time. However, compared to other 4th-tier magic beasts, it had no valuable body parts aside from its flesh and hide, so it had a very low benefit-to-cost ratio. And yet, there was an ironhide bull strapped to the metal bench, causing the bench to shake violently along with its vehement struggles. Mag's eyelids twitched upon seeing that, and he was worried whether the bull would be able to struggle free from its bindings. It would be very difficult to evade such a huge creature in such a small space. Selecting and obtaining premium ingredients is a standard duty of a good chef. It is the prerequisite to cooking a perfect dish, and as a candidate to become the god of cookery, you should learn about all of the ingredients that you are going to use and choose the best parts from them. The system's voice sounded. "You're not asking me to kill this cow, are you? What kind of chef does that nowadays? That's the butcher's job." Mag raised an eyebrow. "Now, you must learn to kill this ironhide bull, then procure the beef required for making kebabs. The cow slaughtering experience bag has already been released, you may begin learning now." The system remained unfazed by Mag's opposition. Mag took a deep breath to calm himself down. He then looked at the Pow-Ding 1 cow slaughter method experience bag in his mind, and a peculiar look appeared on his face. "I have to admit, you sure can get your hands on a lot of things." Mag opened the experience bag, and a surge of information flowed into his mind, forcing him to close his eyes so he could absorb the influx of data. It was said that Pao Ding's cow butchering prowess was so extraordinary that he didn't even need to look at the cow before him to perfectly kill and dissect it. Mag had thought that Zhuangzi was merely exaggerating in his description of Pao Ding's skills, but now, he felt as if Zhuangzi had been too modest in his assessment. This Pao Ding truly was an extraordinary man. He was able to dissect a cow with his consciousness alone, so there was no need to look at his subject. That wasn't because Pao Ding was a psychic or had supernatural powers. Instead, it was because he had such a thorough understanding of the structure of a cow's body that his blade could glide with unerring accuracy between the bones and the flesh, separating the two without even coming into contact with the bones. This kind of technique was truly extraordinary. The experience bag Mag had just received contained a thorough description of this process. It detailed the entire procedure from draining the cow of blood to dissecting it. Everything was presented to him in minute detail. After absorbing everything into his memories, Mag felt as if he had become a vastly experienced butcher. As he lauded Pao Ding internally, he couldn't help but recall Mag Alex's dissection of giant dragons. In his memories, there were certain points overlapping between Pao Ding's cow slaughtering method and Alex's dragon slaying method. In the eyes of Mag Alex, giant dragons were no longer giant dragons. Instead, they were merely prey with countless openings and weaknesses for him to exploit. Pao Ding had slaughtered cows incessantly for 3 years to hone his skills, while Alex had devised his method after slaying countless dragons. Even Mag was rather curious just how many dragons he had slain. If I have some spare time, I should sift through the cultivation methods and special things in my memories. It would be foolish of me to ignore such a massive treasure trove. I can't just rely on the system to help me get stronger, Mag thought to himself. He picked up a cleaver from the nearby knife holder before making his way toward the ironhide bull. Slaughtering the ironhide bull had been a daunting prospect to him a short while ago, but now, the creature was merely a pile of blood, flesh, and bones in his eyes. All he had to do was to separate the bones and flesh before dissecting them into different ingredients. The violent ironhide bull glowered at Mag, and its eyes had already become crimson. Perhaps its fury was being fueled by its fear. In any case, it was becoming even more violent, and the metal bench began to tremor with even greater ferocity. However, Mag's expression remained calm and collected. He raised his cleaver and brought it down upon the ironhide bull's neck in one fast and decisive motion. The ironhide bull's hard skin was easily sliced open by his sharp cleaver, and Mag quickly grabbed the bull's horns, pressing its head back onto the metal bench. Blood began to gush into the blood basin on the bench, and the frantically struggling bull soon was completely motionless. After that, Mag was able to easily peel off the bull's entire hide. Perhaps it was due to his extensive sword training in recent times, but Mag's control over his cleaver was exemplary as he dissected the bull. Using the experience and memories in his mind, he was able to completely dissect the bull in less than half an hour with his cleaver only coming into contact with bones on a few occasions. The bones that were extracted were placed off to the side and assembled to create a skeletal bull. I've got another skill that could earn me a living now. If the restaurant doesn't work out for some reason, I can become a butcher. Mag put down his cleaver and nodded with satisfaction at the sight of the portions of beef on the metal bench. He was still quite far away from being able to dissect a cow without even looking, but he was quite pleased with the result considering it was his first attempt. Contrary to its hard hide, the ironhide bull's flesh was very soft and juicy with superb marbling. Mag's eyes immediately lit up upon seeing that. As an avid lover of steak in his past life, Mag was very familiar with all of the renowned types of beef all over the world. The expensive Japanese Kobe beef was widely accepted as the most exceptional in quality, the Australian grain-fed Angus beef was extremely fine, the Charolais beef produced in Burgundy, France, was more chewy. However, none of those types of beef could hold a candle to the flesh of the ironhide bull. Its color, marbling, and meat quality were clearly superior to anything that he had ever seen. Mag was really looking forward to seeing what it would taste like after being cooked. Roast beef kebabs used the cow's ribeye found on the back of the cow's neck, over the spine and in front of the ribs. The ribeye beef had a perfect distribution between lean and fatty parts, and the marbling on the beef was like an artistic masterpiece. Using beef of such premium standard to make kebabs. What a lavish kebab! Mag couldn't help but cluck his tongue in wonder. One Pao Ding was a cook detailed in one of Zhuangzi's books, and he was said to have an extraordinary cow slaughtering method. If premium beef makes up the body of the perfect kebab, then its soul is the sauce. Sauce of the highest standard can captivate the diner's taste buds and enhance the flavor of the beef to the maximal extent. The sauce created by each and every chef is unique, and it's what sets them apart from other kebab chefs. After Mag had mastered the cow slaughtering technique, the system's voice sounded once again. Mag was in full agreement with that statement. On Earth, one could purchase beef of the most premium quality as long as they had money. However, the same portion of beef yielded a completely different flavor when cooked by different chefs. It was as if the chef had injected their soul into the cut of meat, and the most important factor contributing to that disparity was the sauce. Making the sauce is quite a technical skill as well. Mag opened the condiments box nearby to discover that almost all of the 28 slots in the box had been filled. He did have an experience bag for making the sauce, and there were 3 types of flavors for him to choose from, consisting of barbecue, spicy, and garlic. However, the system didn't give him the specific ratios of condiments that were meant to be used. Instead, terms like minute amount, small amount, moderate amount, and large amount were used. System, you're not being very professional here. What's a minute amount? And what's a large amount? Are you trying to screw over your daddy like this? Mag grumbled. Please watch your mouth. The system is not a biological being, so no daddy exists. The system's stern voice sounded. Don't say things in such definite terms, system. You studied Earth's history for so long, do you know who the father of Apple is? Steve Jobs. Who's the father of the hybrid rice crop? Yuan Longping. The Chinese father of atoms. Qian Sanqiang. Then do you know why they've been given these titles? Jobs founded and developed Apple, Yuan Longping led the development of hybrid rice crop plantation, and Qian Sanqiang made significant contributions to Chinese nuclear technology. System, you were created by me when I transmigrated to this world. Going by the aforementioned logic, tell me who your daddy is. Dad. No. Don't try to distort concepts like this. It's not the same thing. The system's voice was trembling with rage. You said everything yourself. Mag shrugged with a hint of a smile on his face. As a candidate to become the god of cookery, it's imperative that you master the creation of all types of condiments. In order to develop this skill, the system has intentionally neglected to include specific ratios for condiment recipes. If you want to make the perfect sauce, you'll have to develop a greater understanding of all the condiments, then find a balance between them. That is a skill that a professional chef should possess. The system calmed itself down before getting back on track. Looks like I'll have to use up all of my time in here before I can get out. Mag glanced up at the wall, only to find that more than 10 days had passed. Just killing the cow had taken him such a long time, and creating condiments was undoubtedly going to take even longer. However, Mag didn't argue with the system, as he knew that this was indeed a very good opportunity to hone his skills. He was still very much a learner when it came to the world of cooking, and the experience bags bestowed upon him by the system had allowed him to take many shortcuts. However, if he were asked to create a new dish of the same standard from scratch, that would be something far beyond him. His grasp of ingredients and condiments was likely to be inferior even to that of a stay-at-home wife who cooked every day. Now, the system was forcing him to learn about these areas, thereby essentially throwing him into the deep end. In the face of this challenging task, fighting spirit was already burning in Mag's heart. Only through constant learning and refinement would he be able to create delicious cuisine that he could truly call his own, and only then would he be worthy of the title of God of Cookery. The barbecue, spicy, and garlic flavors required completely different combinations of condiments. Mag began to focus on understanding the properties of each condiment, and then began experimenting with what certain condiments tasted like in conjunction with others. The experience bag had pointed out a direction for him, so all Mag had to do was to figure out the ratios to create the perfect sauce. The first batches of sauce that Mag created were absolutely horrendous. Thus, he began a process of constant trial and error. Even though he was greeted by repetitive failure, he was not discouraged as a result. Instead, he carefully thought about what he had done wrong before moving on to the next attempt. The first sauce that obtained the system's approval was the barbecue flavor sauce. With that experience, Mag was able to quickly create spicy and garlic sauces of the same standard. The three sauces all presented different flavors, and Mag was really looking forward to seeing how they would taste on kebabs. Following the completion of the sauces, another month had passed, leaving Mag with not a lot of time left. He pulled out a knife from the holder, and sliced the ribeye beef into 2 cm cubes. He then began to rub the sauce into the beef. After marinating the beef, it was put onto bamboo skewers that were around 20 cm in length, with 5 cubes of beef per skewer. These skewers were then placed aside to be cooked. There was a rectangular oven waiting for him in the left corner of the kitchen, with red-hot coals burning within. Mag tested the temperature with his hand before shaking his head. He waited a while longer before placing 5 kebabs into the oven at once. Sizzle! The beef kebabs immediately produced a delightful sizzling sound as they were placed into the oven. Oil began to bubble and flow from the marbled beef, and the delicious scent of beef began to waft throughout the kitchen. The beef slowly darkened, and its scent began to mature. When the beef was cooked to around medium well, Mag picked up a brush, and applied the sauce to the kebabs. The beef began to sizzle again after being placed back into the oven, and the scent wafting through the air became even more alluring. Amy would really like this, right? Mag's eyes lit up as that thought occurred to him. The next morning, Mag opened his eyes almost at the same time as the alarm clock began to ring. He faltered momentarily before silencing the alarm. Just a second ago, he had obtained approval from the system for his kebabs, and he was back to the real world in the blink of an eye. He had stayed a full 100 days in the test field for the god of cookery before he mastered the beef kebab. Every step of the procedure had presented its own challenges, and it could be seen that a simple-looking beef kebab was a very complex food item to make. However, during that time, Mag had also gained many skills. These included superior ingredient processing, a greater understanding of condiments, better control over flames and heat. In fact, it could be said that he had reached the pinnacle in all of those areas, thereby achieving many small targets that he had had. I should cook a delicious beef kebab to surprise Amy this morning. Mag got up from his bed. Even though he had technically been resting the entire time that he was in the test field for the god of cookery, cooking kebabs for 100 consecutive days without a pause was still quite draining mentally. If he were to close his eyes, he'd feel as if beef kebabs had been imprinted onto the back of his eyelids. Ding! New mission: hunt down a mature ironhide bull within 24 hours and obtain its ribeye beef as ingredients for the first ever batch of kebabs to be cooked on the Norland continent. Punishment for mission failure: deduction of 1 strength point. Reward for mission completion: access to all of the required ingredients and cooking utensils for making kebabs. Holy F***ck. Don't you get sick of doing this all the time? Don't you have any original missions? Should a high-quality system like you be recycling missions like this? Also, as a god of cookery cultivation system, why are you encouraging me to go hunt every day rather than stay home and cook? Can't you just let me focus on cooking? Mag rolled his eyes. After a brief silence, the system added, if you can complete the mission within 12 hours, you get the aforementioned reward as well as an additional 0.5 of a strength point and a mooncake recipe. That's a good system. Only an exemplary system like you can invent such a refreshing and brilliant mission. Mag immediately had a change of tack. What were strength points? They were the light. They presented hope for human evolution. Half a strength point was the equivalent of 25,000 gold coins. Of course, most importantly, completing the mission within 12 hours would earn him half a strength point. Mag was desperate for progression, so this was a perfect opportunity for him. The system hadn't yet released the price for the next strength point. However, judging from its foul personality, since the last strength point had cost him 50,000 gold coins, there was no way the next strength point would cost any less than 100,000 gold coins. Furthermore, aside from that half of a strength point, the system was even promising a mooncake recipe as a bonus reward. Mag had promised Amy to make mooncakes for her, and with a mooncake recipe, he would be able to hold a moon festival celebration and fulfill his promise to Amy. Mag was instantly invigorated by the reward for this mission. He turned his attention to Amy, who was still sound asleep in her little bed. This is a warning from the system, you must complete the mission on your own, and irregular weapons, including your daughter, are strictly prohibited. The system's stern voice sounded. System, I must refute your statement. Amy is my prized treasure, she's the most important thing in my life. How can you describe her as an irregular weapon? That is a twisted interpretation of my paternal love and a brutal insult to my pride. As such, I'm going to protest by taking her on a hike with me, Mag replied in a serious manner. A line of ellipses silently hovered through his mind, reflecting the system's complex feelings. Mag whistled as he made his way downstairs. He cooked 2 portions of Yangzhou fried rice before rousing Amy and announcing to her that they were ditching classes to go on a hike. Father, do we really not have to go to classes today? Amy rubbed her bleary eyes with a joyful expression. That's right. We're going to go on a hike to procure some ingredients. We're going to capture a big cow, and I'm going to make some delicious roast meat kebabs for you. Mag nodded with a smile as he fitted Amy into a simple pink and blue floral dress before taking her downstairs. Roast meat kebabs? So I'll get to have a lot of roast meat. Amy's eyes were shimmering with anticipation. That's right. You get to have as much roast meat as you like. Mag nodded with a warm smile. You're the best, Father. Amy threw her arms around Mag's leg with an elated expression. She then picked up the sleeping ugly duckling and shook it awake before saying, Ugly duckling, if you don't get up now, we're going to leave you at home on your own. Ugly duckling was pretending to be asleep, but it immediately opened its eyes in horror and shook its head vehemently upon hearing that. Let's go together, then. When they had gone to rescue the elves the night before, Ugly Duckling had already fallen asleep, so they left it at home. When they came back, the little kitten was waiting for them at the restaurant entrance with an extremely pitiable and traumatized look on its little face. Meow! Ugly Duckling immediately sprang up with elation. All right, then we'll take you with us, but you'll have to walk on your own, you're no longer a baby. Amy's expression remained firm even at the sight of Ugly Duckling's pitiable display. She then spread open her arms to Mag, and said, Father, carry me. All right, Princess Amy. Mag smiled as he turned around, revealing his wide back for Amy to clamber onto. Thank you. Amy put down Ugly Duckling before climbing onto Mag's back. She circled her arms around Mag's neck and giggled as she said, Let's go. Meow! Ugly Duckling put on an urgent expression as it stood on the bed. Mag picked it up in one hand before going downstairs with Amy on his back. After breakfast, Mag pulled out that business hiatus slip that he had written last time and amended it slightly before plastering it onto the door. After that, he got onto his bike and rode it toward the Mercenary Union. He had to find out if there were Ironhide bulls around Chaos City first. Are you serious? Boss Mag has gone to procure ingredients again. I won't be able to taste the delicious savory tofu pudding today. Outside Mamie restaurant, all of the customers sighed in dejection at the sight of the slip on the door. Who revealed the news to him? That shameless bastard ran away. Ricky squeezed his way to the entrance and glowered at the slip. Ricky finally managed to squeeze his way to the front of the crowd, and his flabby face trembled at the sight of the slip on the door. He had woken up earlier to come to Mamie Restaurant so he could issue an official challenge, but his plan had been thwarted by this hiatus slip. As such, the first thought that occurred to him was that Mag didn't dare to accept the challenge and had fled under the guise of sourcing ingredients. He had absolute confidence in his roast meat. His rotisserie had been passed down through 3 generations, and was a well-established brand in Chaos City. Even without manipulating the rankings, they were still worthy of a place in the top 50 on the Aiden Square Food Competition Rankings Board. Furthermore, he was very confident as he had also prepared a trump card to use against Mag. However, all his preparations had gone to waste as his opponent had disappeared. That was very infuriating to him. Isn't that the owner of Ricky's Rotisserie? I recall he was constantly targeting Mamie Restaurant during last month's Aiden Square Food Competition, and tried to slander Boss Mag. After that, the Catering Association handed down a punishment to him for manipulating the rankings. What's he doing here today? Harrison had identified Ricky, and was rather perplexed. Many customers turned to look at Ricky upon hearing that. They were wondering what gave him the courage to appear at Mamie Restaurant again. Was he here to stir up more trouble? I'm here to challenge the owner of this restaurant to a fair and square cooking contest. The contest will decide who is the king of roast meats in the Aiden Square. Ricky's face became flushed with excitement under such widespread scrutiny, and he made a loud announcement with his right arm raised aloft. Ricky's Rotisserie! Ricky's Rotisserie! The rotisserie employee was also chanting loudly with his arms raised in the air, but he was clearly lacking confidence. Mamie Restaurant doesn't even sell roast meat, so that's most likely not Boss Mag's forte. Besides, Boss Mag never proclaimed himself the king of roast meats. Is this guy retarded? He must be. He's trying to use his forte to challenge Boss Mag with a food item that he doesn't even sell. What a shameless bastard. That's not necessarily the case. Boss Mag is a genius. I feel like there's no dish in this world that he can't cook. Even if it's roast meat, I believe Boss Mag's will be the most delicious. The customers all began to discuss spiritedly among themselves. Some were expressing their disdain for Ricky, while others were announcing their confidence in Maghumph. I'm going to come here again at noon. Let me see if this coward dares to accept my challenge. Ricky harumphed coldly and glared at all of the restaurant customers with a haughty expression before slowly walking away. At this moment, Mag had just emerged from the union with Amy and Ugly Duckling. He was holding a map in his hands, and after some careful inspection, he dragged his bicycle out from a nearby alley and rode it toward the southern city gates. He had secured a map of the area in which ironhide bulls were commonly found, but they were clearly going to be more difficult to find than bronze wild boars. He would have to go deeper into the forest for a chance to find them. Even though it was going to be a little troublesome, the temptation of the strength point and the mooncake recipe still prompted Mag to give it a try. Prior to exiting the city, Mag stowed his bicycle away in a safe place. The path outside the city was very bumpy, and not suitable for cycling. Mag had considered purchasing an off-road vehicle from the system, but decided against it after hearing the expensive quote and taking into consideration the fuel prices. The mercenaries emerged from city gates. Among them were massive forest trolls over 5 meters tall with tree trunks for legs, abyss demons riding atop their porcupine battle boar steeds, goblins lined up in orderly units, and giant dragons gliding through the air overhead. All of them were heading into the wilderness. Father, are we mercenaries as well? Amy sat on Mag's shoulders with excitement on her face. We are. We accepted a mission from the mercenary unison, so of course we're mercenaries. Mag nodded with a smile. These scenes were also making his heart rate accelerate, and a savage facet of himself seemed to be manifesting in his heart. Mercenaries aren't caretakers for little girls, buddy, a knight yelled as he brushed past Mag on horseback. His words instantly drew raucous laughter from the mercenaries around them. Many of them turned to look at Mag with curiosity, wondering why he was taking a little half-elf girl into the wilderness without even a horse for a steed. Furthermore, aside from the strange-looking backpack on his back, he was only carrying a longish blade that didn't even look like a proper weapon. As opposed to a professional mercenary, he looked more like a father taking her daughter out on a hike. Mag didn't pay any heed to the ridicule directed toward him by the mercenaries. All mercenaries enjoyed a bit of banter, and they bore no actual ill will toward him. Besides, how were they supposed to know that he was carrying the most delicious condiments in his backpack, and that the blade he was carrying was the ideal weapon for killing ironhide bulls, the bull-slaying blade? My father is the best mercenary and the best knight. Mag didn't pay them any heed, but Amy was not very happy. All of the mercenaries began to laugh even more boisterously at the sight of the serious expression on Amy's little face. Right at that moment, a carriage being drawn by 3 unicorns stopped beside Mag and Amy. A woman was standing on the carriage, and she asked, "Hey, where are you going?" Mag turned to discover a beautiful woman with long flowing red hair. The light of the rising sun lent her tanned skin a pink hue, and her red and black leather armor was unable to fully conceal her voluptuous chest. Her miniature leather shorts revealed most of her long and athletic legs, drawing even more attention from the nearby bystanders. There was a boomerang over a meter in length strapped to her back, and she was surveying Mag and Amy with curiosity in her beautiful hazel eyes. She gave off the air of a feral leopard hunting for prey. There were 7 other mercenaries sitting in her carriage, among which were orcs, demons, humans, and even an elf. It was clearly a small mercenary party. A huntress. That was the first thought that occurred to Mag. However, he couldn't see any of the disdain and ridicule in her eyes that could be seen on the faces of the other mercenaries. He hesitated momentarily before replying, "We're going to the Illusionary Mist Valley." Illusionary Mist Valley? Sivir faltered momentarily before asking, "Are you hunting for ironhide bulls as well?" "Well. You're also going to the Illusionary Mist Valley?" Mag was also quite surprised to hear this. The huntress' explosive figure and healthy tanned skin gave him an impression of explosive power. From her words, it could be deduced that they were most likely also targeting ironhide bulls. The mercenaries in the carriage were also sizing up Mag and Amy, wondering why their leader had suddenly stopped. This father and daughter duo didn't look like they were prepared to hunt at all, and they were even traveling to the Illusionary Mist Valley on foot. What a joke! "Hello, beautiful big sister huntress." Amy extended a polite greeting toward Sivir. Her eyes were glowing at the sight of such a beautiful big sister. "That's right. We took on a mission to capture ironhide bulls." Sivir nodded before turning to Amy, and said, "Hello, little girl." Sivir's eyes were also glowing as she looked at Amy. What an adorable little girl! The reason why she had stopped the carriage was actually because the little girl sitting on Mag's shoulders had triggered the recollection of a series of warm images in her heart. What a coincidence, we're also going after ironhide bulls. Mag was a little surprised by the huntress' straightforward honesty. Ironhide bulls. The expressions on the faces of the mercenaries on the carriage immediately became quite peculiar. This human didn't have a long sword, nor was he wearing any magician robes, so he didn't appear to be a knight or a magic caster. A guy like him was going to hunt for ironhide bulls with a little half-elf girl? One had to realize that someone had paid a very high price for them to hunt down an ironhide bull. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be taking the risk. Ignorant fool! The young elf in white magician robes sitting alone in the corner of the carriage took a disdainful glance at Mag before turning to Sivir with a love-struck expression. Sivir's gaze fell on Mag, and her eyes narrowed slightly. Mag also looked back at Sivir with a calm expression. "It'll take you at least half a day to get to the Illusionary Mist Valley on foot. If you don't mind, you can come with us on our carriage, and we can take you to the Illusionary Mist Valley," Sivir offered. It had been a long time since she had seen someone with a pair of such pure and clear eyes. Her father had once told her that people with eyes like his couldn't be bad people, as one's eyes were a window that allowed others to peer into their hearts. The illusionary mist valley was a dangerous place, but it was their choice to go there, and he seemed quite determined. As such, she decided to respect his decision. "Are we taking them with us?" The other mercenaries all turned to Sivir with surprised expressions upon hearing that. Their mercenary team never worked with any other mercenaries, particularly when they had the same target. "Sivir, I don't think that's a good idea. Ironhide bulls are very dangerous targets, and this is quite a risky mission even for our Rose mercenary squad. If we have to protect these two during the battle, it'll make our chances for success dwindle even further." The elf stood up and offered his objection. He then turned to Mag, and said coldly, "Furthermore, some people need to develop some self-awareness. They need to know what they can do and what they can't." The other members of the mercenary squad also nodded upon hearing that. Even though Evan's words were rather scathing, they weren't entirely unreasonable. Mercenary missions always carried an element of risk, and the chances of failure would inevitably increase if they had to protect these two. Furthermore, in the worst-case scenario, these two could drag down their whole squad, resulting in widespread casualties. "We can protect ourselves. My father is super strong." Amy looked at Evan with a grumpy expression. He was an elf as well, but for some reason, she felt a lot more comfortable in the company of big sister Aisha and big brother Blower. "Evan, don't judge people whom you know nothing about." A hint of displeasure flashed through Sivir's eyes. As the only offensive magic caster in their squad as well as an ice-type magic caster who was close to becoming an intermediate magic caster, Evan's combat prowess was second only to her own in their mercenary squad. Ever since his inclusion into their squad 3 months ago, he had played a major role in many of their missions, and allowed their squad to pick missions with greater rewards. However, Sivir knew why Evan chose their Rose mercenary squad as opposed to joining a more powerful mercenary squad. He had expressed his love for her on many occasions, but she rejected him every time. He wasn't a good man with a kind heart. In Sivir's eyes, it wasn't important whether her future spouse was powerful or not, but he had to be a kind-hearted person. "Sivir, Evan's brows furrowed upon hearing that. He didn't think that Sivir would speak to him in that manner just for the sake of a couple of strangers. "It would be great if you could take us there." Mag looked at Sivir with a smile and cut off Evan's objections. Ignoring the distance to the illusionary mist valley had indeed been an oversight on his part. Not only would it be very tiring for them to walk half a day to reach the valley, it would also be very difficult for them to transport the Ironhide bull back after slaying it. Even if they were to return empty-handed, they would still only make it back into Chaos City late into the night, and the wilderness at night time was a drastically more dangerous place than it was during the day. As such, the alternative offered to them by Sivir was clearly the best option. This mercenary squad clearly wasn't very powerful. For them to regard the Ironhide bull as a risky target indicated that they were predominantly below the 4th tier in power. However, they were still powerful enough to take care of themselves as long as they didn't venture too deep into the wilderness. As for the elf who seemed to be displaying enmity toward him for no reason, Mag paid him no heed. In his past life, he had seen countless men whose IQ had been reduced to 0 in the face of the woman they pursued. He had countless different ways to take care of a love-struck fool like him. "Come on, then. Seeing as we have the same target, we'll split up once we get to the illusionary mist valley." Sivir had developed a positive first impression of Mag, but she had to consider the feelings of her squad members. As the squad leader, she knew what she should and shouldn't do. "Thank you." Mag smiled as he helped Amy onto the carriage before climbing onto it himself. He sat in a corner with Amy in his arms, while she held Ugly Duckling in her arms. "Let's keep going." Sivir turned and issued an instruction to the thin mercenary driving the carriage. Thus, they continued onward. "I didn't think there could be such a shameless person in this world," Evan grumbled as he glowered at Mag. "Are you talking about yourself?" Amy asked curiously. The disdainful look on Evan's face immediately stiffened, and his brows trembled as he struggled to suppress his rage. The mercenaries immediately burst into laughter upon hearing that. Evan had a horrible personality, and always regarded himself as better than everyone else, thereby giving everyone a very bad first impression of him. SAHDR had already invited Mag and his daughter onto the carriage, and they were going to part right after arriving in the illusionary Mist Valley, so they wouldn't affect their mission, and there was no need to direct animosity toward the two. Furthermore, this little girl really was very adorable. It wasn't often that Evan was shut down in such a brutal manner. Right at that moment, the young woman sitting nearest to Evan abruptly rose to her feet with an enraged expression, and said, "Little brat, how could say that to Master Evan? He's a powerful third-tier ice-type magic caster and a spatial magic caster as well. You have to apologize to Master Evan immediately." Mag looked up to discover that the young woman was about 17 or 18 years old, wearing a simple blue and white dress. Her looks were quite ordinary, and as she had a white wand hanging from her waist, she was most likely a magic caster. However, she wasn't even wearing any magician robes, so she was probably only a first-tier magic caster. From her furious expression, it was as if the most important person in her life had just been insulted. Her reaction reminded Mag of the countless retarded fans fawning over their idols that Mag had seen in his past life. "Look, this big sister's chest is so small." Amy looked at Eva with a stunned expression. She even went as far as to point at her chest to demonstrate her point, and exclaimed, "It's like there's nothing there at all." Everyone turned to look in the direction that Amy was pointing in unison. Sure enough, it was flat as a board, and they all nodded in agreement. You, Eva's expression abruptly changed as she sat back down. She hugged her knees around her chest, trying her best to hide her shortcomings as she blushed as red as a tomato. She glared intently at Amy and Mag as she did so, just as if she wanted to eat both of them. "Are you a mercenary as well, buddy? Are you a knight or a magic caster?" The Minotaur demon, Dennis, who was sitting beside Mag, turned to him with a smile. Everyone else also turned their attention to Mag with curious looks upon hearing that. Mag's equipment was very bizarre, and no one could deduce just what he was supposed to be. Even SAHDR turned to look back at Mag, wondering what gave him the confidence to take his little daughter into the wilderness on a hunting trip. If he were powerful enough to look after her, then this would be good parenting, but if not, he would just be an irresponsible father. Mag looked at everyone's curious expressions, and replied calmly, "I'm actually a chef." Everyone was taken aback by that response. They all stared at Mag, wondering if they had misheard. "Father's cooking is super delicious," Amy chimed in with a proud look on her little face. "Eh, chef? Then why are you looking for an ironhide bull?" Dennis stared at Mag with wide eyes. He had thought that he had misheard, but the little girl's declaration confirmed that he had indeed heard Mag right. Thus, he turned to Mag with a stunned expression. His expression was also roughly mirrored on everyone else's faces. They were all struck by the absurdity of the situation. They were a group of seasoned mercenaries, but they were sitting on the same carriage and aiming for the same target as a chef. "A chef?" SAHDR's brows furrowed slightly upon hearing that. She could see from Mag's eyes that he was quite a reasonable and wise person. However, if he really was just a chef, but was taking his daughter into the wilderness, then he really couldn't be referred to as a good father. The other alternative would be that he had no idea what a fourth-tier magic beast entailed. "My restaurant is preparing to launch a new dish that requires beef from the ironhide bull. I'm sourcing some ingredients for that purpose," Mag gave an honest reply. In all honesty, with the dragon-slaying experience that he had gleaned from Mag Alex's memories, he was actually a far superior hunter compared to everyone present in the carriage. "You sure dare to dream. Don't you know that an ironhide bull is a fourth-tier magic beast? Even we wouldn't dare to face it head-on. At full speed, it can easily ram large trees into the ground. Its powerful body is no joke. Even the most powerful strike from a 3th tier knight would only be able to inflict a light wound on its body. You don't even have a sword, what are you going to do? Fight it with your bare hands. Scott laid a hand on the long sword hanging from his waist as he looked at Mag. He felt as if this guy had no idea what he was doing by heading into the illusionary mist valley. I actually did bring a weapon. This is a bull-slaying blade. Mag pointed at the blade hanging from his waist. Peculiar expressions appeared on the faces of the mercenaries upon hearing that. They had worked as mercenaries for half their lives, and had never heard of any bull-slaying blade. Sivir was also beginning to develop a headache. She was considering whether she should try and convince this guy to go back to Chaos City with his daughter. Was he trying to get himself and his daughter killed? Even a chef dares to venture into the wilderness? Let me see your bull-slaying blade. Evan looked at Mag with a mocking expression before extending his right hand toward Mag. An icy blue light appeared on Evan's hand, upon which the bull-slaying blade hanging from Mag's waist began to tremor gently. It then struggled free from its scabbard and flew through the air. All of the mercenaries were quite tense upon seeing that. Taking someone's weapon was a taboo among mercenaries. For mercenaries, their weapons were their most loyal companions. In a situation like this, it was very likely that a brawl would erupt. Sivir was also looking on with displeasure. As expected, Evan was still as annoying as ever. However, she also wanted Mag to realize the dangers of venturing out into the wilderness so he could give up on his suicidal journey. As such, she didn't intervene. You can have a look at it, but make sure you don't drop it. This blade is very sharp. Mag smiled as he gently flicked the hilt of his bull-slaying blade. Ding! The blade was originally flying steadily toward Evan's hand, but it suddenly changed directions and accelerated from Mag's flick. Thus, it began flying toward Evan's crotch at an incredible speed. No! Evan's expression changed dramatically, but it was too late for him to try and alter the blade's trajectory. He felt a cold sensation whistle past his crotch and let loose a howl of anguish. Wish! Ding! The bull-slaying blade struck the wooden board right in front of Evan's crotch, pinning part of his trousers and magician robes to the seat. The hilt of the blade was quivering gently, and the cold lightly glimmering from its sharp edge made all of the men present unconsciously close their legs. Evan's face was deathly pale, and it was as if an arctic breeze were blowing past his crotch. In that instant, he felt as if he were going to have to bid farewell to his manhood. The sharp edge of the blade was less than an inch away from his crown jewels, making his heart skip a beat. It was only an ordinary-looking blade, but it somehow seemed to be indescribably sharp. Evan looked at the quivering hilt and felt as if his heart were quivering along with it. He immediately sprang back to try and get away from that terrifying blade. Rib! A loud tearing sound erupted, and the bull-slaying blade easily tore his pants down the middle, leaving a huge gash right in front of his crotch. Evan's expression changed abruptly as he clamped his legs together with a blush on his face. He was like an embarrassed monkey, and all of his haughtiness had disappeared. The mercenaries all wore peculiar expressions upon seeing that. They wanted to laugh, but had to suppress the urge to do so, and some of them were already having to pinch their own legs. Looks like he's not just some simple chef, after all. Sivir looked at Mag with a surprised expression before turning away as a smile appeared on her face. Mag's flick had completely changed the trajectory of the bull-slaying blade mid-flight, and even though she didn't know whether it'd gone exactly as he intended, it still taught Evan a lesson. Eva looked at Evan, and a blush also appeared on her face. She hurriedly stood up and rummaged through her bags as she said, "Don't worry, Master Evan, I brought a dress along with me. I'll give it to you right now." Stabbed by the blade he was trying to steal, he ended up with a hole in his pants, and now he has to wear a flower dress. How embarrassing! Amy sang an impromptu tune to herself with a joyful smile on her face. Ha ha ha! The mercenaries who were trying to suppress their laughter were finally unable to hold on any longer. This little girl was very adorable, but her tongue was very sharp. "I'm not wearing that." Evan's blush deepened as he threw aside the floral dress that Eva was offering to him. "But, Eva looked on as her floral dress was swept away with the wind before snagging onto the tree branch. Tears were already beginning to swim in her eyes. That was her favorite dress. Shut up! Evan cried in a blind fury. He had never been humiliated like this before, much less in front of the woman he desired. He wanted to dig a hole and bury himself there forever. Eva looked at Evan before silently making her way back to her seat. Tears flowed down her face and fell onto the ground. She looked at Meg and Amy through the corners of her eyes with a resentful expression. It was all their fault that Master Evan would treat her like this. Make sure to hold the blade properly next time. Otherwise, you might not always get so lucky. Mag pulled the bull-slaying blade from the wooden board as he looked at Evan with a calm expression. He wasn't some divine deity willing to forgive everyone and everything. If someone insisted on trying his patience, then he didn't mind teaching them a lesson. The blade had landed just in front of his crotch on this occasion. Next time, he might not be so accurate. You won't even have a dress to wear next time, Amy chimed in with a serious expression. Humph! Evan was trembling with rage, but he could only sit down in silence. He was the one who had tried to grab Mag's blade, so even if the blade had actually struck him, it would still have been his own fault. He had already thoroughly embarrassed himself, and if he carried on any further, Sever's impression of him would only continue to worsen. He looked at the deep blade indentation on the wooden board, and unconsciously scooted off to the side a little. Furthermore, he was feeling a lot more wary after that flick of Mag. Even though his spatial magic was only at the first tier caliber, he could still alter the trajectory of projectiles during flight. However, he was completely unable to do anything to that oncoming blade. The mercenaries were also looking at Mag with new eyes. They had initially thought that Mag was just a strange chef, but they discovered now that his straightforward and decisive personality was like that of a true knight. This observation struck them with the urge to befriend him. Hello, my name is Dennis. I'm responsible for leading the charge and acting as the meat shield in the Rose Mercenary Squad, the Minotaur demon introduced himself with a smile. I'm Skol, I'm responsible for charging up front, the burly orc sitting beside Dennis said with a bashful smile. I'm Scott, I'm usually responsible for cover during retreat and evacuation, the human knight said with a smile. I'm Sam. I lay all of our traps, a middle-aged man introduced himself as well. I'm Sydney, you can also call me Monkey. I drive the carriage and do the scouting for the squad. The thin young man driving the carriage turned to Mag with a smile, revealing 2 rows of pristine white teeth. I'm Sever, the leader of the Rose Mercenary Squad, Sever said. Evan turned his face away as the veins on his forehead bulged with fury. Meanwhile, Eva had her head buried between her legs, clearly not intending to introduce herself. I'm Mag, the owner of Mamie Restaurant. This is my daughter, Amy. Mag responded in kind. The fact that these mercenaries were introducing themselves to him indicated that they were accepting him as one of their own. Even though he wasn't particularly fond of that elf, he had a good impression of all these other mercenaries. So you're a restaurant owner as well as a chef? That means your food must be really good, right? Can we expect you to cook a delicious lunch for us later today? Sydney turned to Mag with an expectant gaze. The other mercenaries' eyes all lit up upon hearing that. Sure. If you want, you can leave lunch to me, but I'm going to need your help to source some ingredients. Mag nodded in response. He would cook them lunch in exchange for their transportation services. It was a good and fair deal. Don't you worry about that, we're all veteran hunters here. Monkey smiled, and all of the other mercenaries chuckled as well. The carriage quickly sped onward. Unicorns were 12 ND tier magic beasts with gentle character, and had stamina and speed far superior to those of normal horses. Even on such a steep and bumpy path, they were able to maintain a decent speed. Mag chatted with the mercenaries along the way. Amy interjected from time to time, drawing laughter from everyone aside from the Evan and Eva, who were still sulking in a corner. Stop and prepare for battle. Sivir suddenly issued a command as the carriage came to an abrupt halt. The carriage stopped on a path lined with massive trees, which created a dense forest. The mercenaries in the carriage immediately sprung into action. Minotaur Demon Dennis and Orc Skol exited the carriage first, standing at the forefront of the party with their weapons drawn. Scott and Sam were responsible for guarding the rear of the carriage, and both of them wore wary expressions as they surveyed their surroundings. Meanwhile, Sydney leaped from one tree branch to another like an actual monkey, and soon disappeared from view. Evan remained sitting in the carriage while holding his wand and looking around. Eva also remained sitting in the carriage, but she had unconsciously sidled up closer to Evangelist. Mag held Amy against his chest with his left arm, while his right hand hovered over his bull-slaying blade. Carrying a long sword could lead people to suspect his true identity, so he decided to temporarily use his bull-slaying blade as his weapon. He looked around curiously, but didn't find anything that looked as if it were worth fighting. As such, he was wondering why Sivir had suddenly instructed Sydney to stop the carriage. Amy's eyes were also filled with curiosity. This was her first time traveling with a mercenary squad, and a battle appeared to be imminent, so she was very excited. Meanwhile, Ugly Duckling, who was sleeping in her arms, suddenly opened its eyes as its ears perked up. It sniffed the air carefully before looking around the surrounding forest as if something had caught its interest. Dennis turned to Sivir, and asked, "Squad leader, what are we dealing with here?" The other mercenaries were rather perplexed too, but they weren't skeptical. They seemed to have absolute trust in Sivir's judgment. "It's a mature purple golden mink. We're in luck. If we can catch this little guy, it'll net us earnings no less than those from the Ironhide Bull," Sivir said with a smile. A purple golden mink. All of the mercenaries were overjoyed to hear this. "Who would have thought we'd encounter one of those here? I heard someone offered 500 gold coins for a purple golden mink hide. It's even more expensive in weight than gold. We sure are lucky today." Dennis rubbed his hands together eagerly. "Purple golden minks are very alert and extremely fast creatures, so it won't be easy for us to capture it in this dense forest. We can only get Monkey to try and chase it toward us, then capture it. We only have one chance, and if we miss it, the mink will get away." Sivir's smile receded, and was replaced by a serious expression. She pointed to a narrow passageway between hills nearby, and said, "Let's wait there. Sam, you go set up the traps. Everyone else, disperse evenly. Once the purple golden mink appears, don't rush in to catch it straight away. Instead, try and chase it toward a certain direction so Evan can catch it with the help of Sam's traps. Remember that the purple golden mink is only valuable for its hide. A complete mink hide is vastly more valuable than a damaged one. Even if we can't capture it alive, try not to harm it too much." Sivir's expression had become quite serious. "Yes." All of the mercenaries began to disperse in front of that natural passageway, creating a pocket. Meanwhile, Sam rushed on ahead and began to set up traps. Sivir turned to Mag, and said, "Mr. Mag, this is an unforeseen scenario, and will require some time to capture this purple golden mink. The purple golden mink won't attack anyone unprovoked under normal circumstances, but it's still rather dangerous as it's a second-tier magic beast. There's no guarantee that it won't go berserk when desperate. Hence, I think it would be best for you and your daughter to stay in the carriage. We'll continue our journey after capturing the mink." Evan stood up and glared coldly at Mag as he pursed his lips in disdain. He then leaped lightly onto the branch of a large tree nearby before traversing through the forest. If it weren't for the fact that he had to constantly keep one hand on his crotch, his movement would appear far more graceful. "He's so cool even he's jumping. I'm so lucky." An intoxicated expression appeared on Eva's face before she turned to glance at Mag with disdain. "No problem." Mag nodded in response. Purple golden mink hide was one of the most sought-after coat materials for nobles. Mag knew a bit about them, and they were indeed second-tier magic beasts, so Sivir really was looking out for their safety. Of course, she must have also been worried that their participation would negatively impact the mercenary squad's synergy. Purple golden minks weren't very powerful, but they were extremely fast, and even a powerful knight would find it difficult to catch one in a forest. That was why their hide was so expensive. If it weren't for the fact that they had just so happened to come across one, the Rose mercenary squad wouldn't try to capture it. After all, the failure rate was very high when attempting to capture a purple golden mink, so they were only trying their luck. As for Eva, Mag couldn't even be bothered to look at her. He was afraid that looking at such a retard would kill off all of his brain cells. Sivir nodded and parked the carriage beside some bushes. She then brought out the whip tied around her waist and snapped it in the air, upon which it wound itself around the branch of a large tree. She then pulled herself abruptly toward that branch and repeated that process to traverse through the trees. Big Sister Sivir is so awesome. Amy looked on with glowing eyes. Indeed, she is. Watching Sivir traverse through the forest reminded him of Lara from Tomb Raider. Father, what's a purple golden mink? Amy asked. It's a very large type of rat with purple and golden fur, Mag explained with a smile. A large rat. Amy's eyes lit up and she turned to Ugly Duckling as she said, Ugly Duckling, it's a rat. Can you catch it? Ha, it's not a rat. The purple golden mink is a second-tier magic beast, a pathetic little kitten like that thing will never be able to catch it. Eva looked at Ugly Duckling with mockery on her face. Meow. Ugly Duckling seemed to be very displeased to hear that, and extended its tiny paws in a menacing display. You're wrong, Big Sister Flat Chest. Ugly Duckling is not a kitten, but a duckling instead. Also, it's a duckling that can catch rats. Amy shook her head with a serious expression. Humph. If even that thing can catch the purple golden mink, then I'll eat the mink raw. Eva was trembling with rage after hearing Amy's words, and she turned away again. It's here. A loud cry erupted from the distance as Monkey quickly traversed through the forest. In front of him was a purple and golden figure that was moving so quickly it could barely be tracked by the naked eye. Ugly Duckling, you have to make sure Big Sister Flat Chest gets to eat the big rat. Amy patted Ugly Duckling's head with a solemn expression. The Rose mercenary squad members had already hidden themselves in the forest. The enormous trees and dense forestry created the ideal cover for them as they awaited the perfect moment to strike. The first one to spring into action was Dennis. His massive figure emerged from behind a tree, and his huge mace whistled through the air, barely missing the purple golden mink before it slammed into a tree. The massive tree was felled amid a resounding boom, drawing a cry of shock and panic from the purple golden mink as it reflexively sprang away from Dennis. However, right at that moment, a green figure emerged from behind a tree in that direction, bringing a massive black shield down toward the purple golden mink viciously. An extremely humanized expression of shock and horror appeared on the mink's face. However, as a second-tier magic beast whose forte lay in speed and agility, it wouldn't be caught so easily. It spread open its four limbs as if it were opening up a paragliding suit, and faint golden light shimmered from its limbs, allowing it to forcibly change its direction in midair and glide past the shield. It then sprang up forcefully from a tree, leaving deep indentations in the tree trunk with its powerful limbs before leaping toward another tree at an even faster speed. You're not getting away. Scott emerged from behind a tree, standing right in its path. He gripped his long sword tightly in his hands before bringing it down with devastating power. Vrr! The purple golden mink was unable to evade, and could only extend its claws, which were enshrouded in golden light, to meet the long sword. Ding! A crisp ringing sound erupted. The long sword struck the claws, and sparks flew through the air. The purple golden mink tumbled to the ground, and quickly began to flee once again. It was trying to avoid escaping through the passageway between the two hills as it could sense a dangerous aura situated in that direction. Right at that moment, a black boomerang hurtled forth from behind it, evading all of the trees as if it had a mind of its own before flying directly toward the mink. The purple golden mink wanted to go left, but it could only forcibly change directions again, weaving through the trees to run toward the passageway between the two hills while avoiding the boomerang. As soon as it reached the end of that passageway, the forest would become even denser on the other side, thereby allowing it to easily slip away. On a large tree beside the passageway, Sam was holding a green vine while staring with rapt attention at the oncoming purple golden mink. In another direction, Evan sat on a tree branch with a relaxed expression. His legs were folded in a rather awkward way as he pointed his white wand toward the purple golden mink. To think that a group of third-tier mercenaries could cooperate so effectively, this mercenary squad is quite a proficient one, Mag praised internally. With the past experience of Mag Alex guiding him, he was able to easily gauge everyone's power levels during those brief exchanges. The Rose mercenary squad members were predominantly at the third tier in power, with Sivir and Dennis close to the fourth tier. Skol and Scott were both at the third tier, while Sydney and Sam were most likely second-tier beings. With sufficient chemistry, the power a group was capable of unleashing would be far greater than the sum of its individual members. This notion was being exemplified by the Rose mercenary squad. In this dense forest, they were able to force the purple golden mink toward the ideal direction through their seamless teamwork. It appeared that they had the mink in the bag. Meow! Ugly Duckling sat up excitedly and extended its little paws, revealing the sharp claws within. The purple golden mink was in a complete panic and rushed blindly into the traps set up by Sam. During this brief period of time, Sam had already set up 3 traps, all of which targeted agile prey like the purple golden mink. As long as it entered the designated area, he was confident in his ability to capture the mink. Eva also rose to her feet and looked on with a nervous expression. The boomerang carved a beautiful trajectory through the air before returning to Sivir's hand. A smile appeared on her face as she looked at the purple golden mink charging toward the traps. However, she still headed in that direction with her hand resting on her boomerang, ready to hurl it again at any moment. Monkey was also pursuing the purple golden mink. Before the prey had actually been captured, complacency was absolutely taboo. However, right as the purple golden mink was about to rush into the traps, an intelligent light flashed through its eyes as it spread open its limbs again, allowing it to change directions in mid-air. A wooden cage fell from the sky, but landed about half a meter away from it. 2 rows of arrows also crisscrossed through the air, but were successfully evaded. As for the final trap, Sam hadn't even activated it yet. "Stop right there, filthy beast!" Evan had thought that the hunt was over, so his expression changed slightly upon seeing that. However, he still reacted very quickly as he waved his wand toward the purple golden mink, abruptly conjuring up 4 walls of ice that confined the mink within. "Master Evan is so impressive!" Eva was squealing like a mindless fangirl. Crack! The purple golden mink swept its claws through the air. 3 streaks of purple and golden light flashed, destroying the wall of ice directly in front of it. How could this be? Eva looked on in disbelief. "Die, bastard!" Consecutive ice spears. Evans also raised an eyebrow upon seeing that. He was quite embarrassed by the fact that he couldn't even trap a purple golden mink. He chanted a spell and waved his wand, upon which 5 ice spears about a meter in length hurtled through the air toward the purple golden mink at an extremely fast speed. Howl! Having just crushed the all of ice, the purple golden mink let loose a sharp cry, and its half a meter long body instantly doubled in size. The purple fur that was only found on its head also extended all the way to its tail. Purple golden light created a powerful barrier around itself and it rose up on its hind legs, swatting its forepaws through the air. A series of cracks erupted as the 5 ice spears were reduced to shattered ice shards. This is a mutant purple golden mink with 3rd-tier caliber power. Moreover, it possesses strong offensive power. Sivir was shocked to see this. After easily swatting aside the 5 ice spears, purple golden mink looked up at Evan with a mocking expression before springing toward the nearby carriage, leaving a deep indentation on the tree trunk with its paws. Following its transformation, its speed more than doubled, thereby allowing it to instantly shake off Monkey and Sivir. Crap, it's heading for the carriage. Stop it. SAHDR hurled her boomerang through the air as a panicked expression appeared on her face. The other mercenaries also rushed toward the carriage with grim looks on their faces. Mag, Amy, and Eva were the only people on the carriage. Eva was a healer, Mag was a chef, and Amy was a child. In the face of a berserking purple golden mink, they were most likely in a lot of trouble. In this case, you should all just go die. Contrary to what everyone else was doing, Evan withdrew his wand upon seeing that, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. No. Eva looked at the oncoming purple golden mink, and her expression changed drastically as she stumbled back. Go, ugly duckling. Amy stood up and joyfully released Ugly Duckling toward the oncoming purple golden mink. Ugly Duckling's round body flew through the air in a graceful arc before plunging into a pile of leaves on the side of the path, leaving only its chubby bottom, hind legs, and tail visible. Amy faltered momentarily before bursting into laughter. She looked at the incoming purple golden mink, and clenched her little fists as she yelled, "Go, ugly duckling! The big rat is coming now. If you don't catch it, we won't have anything to eat for lunch. In that case, we'll have to eat whoosh." Before Amy could even finish, Ugly Duckling pulled its head out from beneath the leaves and looked at the approaching mutant purple golden mink with rapt focus. Its orange fur bristled, transforming Ugly Duckling into an orange hedgehog. It arched it back and extended its right paw, awaiting its foe. That little thing will probably get mauled to death in an instant. Eva looked at Ugly Duckling with a resentful expression as she slowly scooted over to another corner in the carriage. If the purple golden mink made it to the carriage, it would definitely attack the closest targets. As long as Mag and his daughter could delay it a little, Master Evan would be able to save her. With that in mind, Eva turned to look up at Evan's perch on the tree, upon which her eyes widened with shock. SAHDR and all of the other mercenaries were rushing as quickly as they could toward the carriage, but Evan was doing nothing. He was clearly the closest one to the carriage, and as a magic caster, he was the most proficient in long-range attacks. However, he was standing rooted to the spot with a smile on his face as if he were waiting for a good show to begin. No. Master Evan must be preparing some type of powerful spell, the type that can insta-kill this mutant purple golden mink. Eva shook her head desperately to try and convince herself that Evan was doing something to help her. However, the image of his smile remained in her mind, and horror even more potent than her fear of death welled up in her heart. It's so fast. SAHDR and the mercenaries were rushing forward as quickly as they could, but the purple golden mink was like an uncatchable bolt of lightning. Mutant magic beasts often had certain abilities enhanced. This purple golden mink had clearly had its speed and offensive power boosted following its transformation. If this purple golden mink were allowed to rush into the carriage in its current state, the consequences would be catastrophic. Even the boomerang was unable to catch purple golden mink, so SAHDR knew that they wouldn't be able to stop it in time. The walls of ice that were supposed to have appeared in front of the purple golden mink by now failed to show up, so they could only hope that Mag and the others could buy them some time. Escape clearly wasn't the correct option. However, in a direct confrontation, Eva and Amy clearly couldn't be depended upon, so Mag became their only hope. They could only pray that his flick from earlier was an indication of exemplary power and control as opposed to a result of dumb luck. However, right at that moment, Amy suddenly hurled forth an unidentifiable orange object. Only after it fell to the ground did everyone realize that it was that orange kitten. The kitten was absolutely tiny, and in the face of the meter-long purple golden mink, it was as if a role reversal had taken place between cat and mouse. They felt as if the purple golden mink would be able to easily sweep the kitten aside, but the latter stood valiantly in front of the carriage with its back arched and a single paw extended. Is Mag relying on this kitten to stop that purple golden mink? The same absurd thought flashed through the minds of all of the mercenaries upon seeing that. Arrogant bastards who lack self-awareness always die the quickest. This is a purple golden mink that can even destroy my ice spears, that little kitten is no match for it. Do they really think that it's just an oversized rat? Evan chuckled coldly as he rushed toward the carriage. White light shimmered on his wand again, but he had already missed the best opportunity to stop the mink, so the only fate that awaited Mag and the others was death. Only in their dying throes would these lowly beings realize just how important and regal he was, and repent for the way that they had treated him. As for Eva, she was just a lowly woman with plain looks and a mediocre figure. She was only useful for those lonely nights when he was unable to repress his libido. However, she seemed to be yearning for more in their relationship, and this was a perfect opportunity to get rid of her. Was the purple golden mink shot toward the carriage like a bolt of lightning. Its purple and golden fur was shimmering with a metallic sheen, and its adorable features were looking quite sinister. 2 long tusks had sprouted from its mouth, and its eyes had turned crimson red. It spread open its large mouth like a wild dog as it prepared to swallow Ugly Duckling in a single bite. It had also clearly noticed Ugly Duckling, and a hint of fear appeared in its eyes as it slowed down a little. However, that fear quickly disappeared, and its eyes turned back into their crimson color. It became even more violent, and stomped its paws into the ground, accelerating again while crushing a large stone in the process. It leaped into the air and opened its cavernous mouth as it dove at Ugly Duckling. In the face of the purple golden mink, Ugly Duckling wasn't fearful in the slightest. Its ears perked up and it stood up on its hind legs as it yelled, "Meow!" Its meow was very tender, and Mag almost burst into laughter upon hearing it. Ugly Duckling's heroic image had been completely ruined by that mellow cry. He had thought that Ugly Duckling would reveal a side to itself that would surprise him in this perilous situation. After all, it had been raring to go this entire time. However, it appeared that it wasn't actually brave, but simply downright stupid instead. It would probably dare to extend a paw even toward a giant dragon, let alone a purple golden mink. Mag had already clasped the hilt of his blade in his hand. At such a short range, he was confident that he would be able to kill the purple golden mink before it managed to attack Ugly Duckling. His swordsmanship was very fast. "Eat it! Eat the whole thing so you waste more time." Eva's eyes were wide with anticipation as she cowered in the corner of the carriage. Sivir caught her boomerang and hurled it through the air again. At the same time, she strove to charge forward a little faster, but there was a hint of sympathy in her eyes. There was no way that this little kitten was going to survive, so she could only hope that it could buy her some time. However, right when Mag was about to attack, the purple golden mink's body suddenly stiffened in midair as it heard Ugly Duckling's cry. It was as if it had heard the tolling of the clock of death, and unbridled shock and horror appeared in its eyes as it turned to Ugly Duckling. It spread open its 4 limbs again to try and change directions in midair, frantically attempting to flee from Ugly Duckling. However, it had built up too much momentum, and couldn't get away in time. Ugly Duckling was still perched on its hind legs as it patted the mink on its head with a tiny paw. Splat! The purple golden mink immediately fell dead to the ground. Ding! The boomerang struck the ground near the carriage, and its handle was still trembling at a high frequency. Everyone's footsteps faltered as they looked at the scenes unfolding around the carriage. They were all staring with incredulity at the dead purple golden mink and the tiny orange kitten. The mutant purple golden mink was at least a 3rd-tier magic beast, but it had been killed by a tender meow and a gentle tap to the head. Or perhaps it had been frightened to death. Just what is that little kitten? Everyone was perplexed. How? Evan stopped on a tree branch, bewildered as well. He was already prepared to subdue the purple golden mink after it killed the 3 people in the carriage. In doing so, he could get rid of Mag and his daughter, as well as Eva. On top of that, he would then be able to unleash his true power to intimidate his fellow mercenaries, but those plans had been foiled by a small kitten. A hint of joy initially appeared on Eva's face at the realization that she had survived, but she then looked at Ugly Duckling and thought back to what she had said, upon which her expression became quite strained. Meow! Ugly Duckling pranced forward and laid its tiny paw on the purple golden mink's head. It then turned back to Amy with a gloating expression as if it wanted to be praised. "You were awesome, ugly duckling. Amy clapped her little hands with elations before turning to Eva with a smile as she said, "Big sister flat chest, ugly duckling caught the big rat. Are you going to eat it now or later?" "You." Eva's body was trembling with rage. She was the one who had made that bet, so she couldn't even turn Amy down. As such, her face was as red as a tomato from fury and humiliation. "What is that thing? It's definitely not some ordinary orange cat. Could it be some type of primordial mythological beast? But how could it have been picked up by some random guy collecting herbs, then? That's hardly an epic backstory." Mag also wore an expression of surprise on his face. Ugly Duckling was able to frighten a mutant third-tier magic beast to death with just a tender meow. Mag would be an idiot if he still thought it to be just an ordinary fat cat. However, in his memory, there weren't any powerful magic beasts with the appearance of an orange cat. In any case, one thing was for sure, the egg that they had purchased back then was actually a treasure. As for just what this little orange kitten would grow up to become, Mag didn't know the answer himself. However, with the way that it was eating, it was most likely going to become a ball. The crisis had been dispelled, so Mag removed his hand from the hilt of his blade. He looked at Ugly Duckling, which had rushed over to the carriage wheel and was begging for a hug from Amy. Perhaps it would become a powerful ally of Amy, just like the purple-striped griffin had been to Mag Alex. Mag carried Amy down from the carriage, while Amy cradled up Ugly Duckling in her arms. She had a serious expression on her little face as she said, "Well done, Ugly Duckling. Are you all right?" Sivir pulled her boomerang out of the ground before turning to Mag and the others. "We're fine. I'm not sure about the girl on the carriage, though." Mag shook his head with a smile as he pointed to Eva, who was still slumped in her seat on the carriage. "Eva." Sivir quickly made her way over to Eva with a concerned look. I'm fine." Eva rose unsteadily to her feet as she shook her head. Her legs were still trembling slightly from residual fear. She had thought that she was going to die here. However, there was no hint of gratitude in her eyes whatsoever, as she turned to look at Mag and Amy. Instead, her expression harbored a hint of resentment. Why was it that even their kitten could kill a mutant purple golden mink? Was she actually expected to eat the mink raw? All of the mercenaries also gathered around to appraise Ugly Duckling with amazement in their eyes. It was able to frighten a third-tier magic beast to death even at such a youthful stage of its development. This little thing was most likely the baby of some sort of high-tier magic beast. They wondered how it had ended up becoming Mag and Amy's pet. "What kind of magic beast is your kitten, little Amy? It's so powerful." Dennis stroked his own hair as he looked at Amy with a bashful smile. Everyone also turned to look at Amy upon hearing that. Even Sivir was quite curious about the orange kitten in Amy's arms. It was very difficult to encounter the baby of a magic beast, and even more so to find one birthed by a high-tier magic beast. Under normal circumstances, if a magic beast mother were attacked and knew that it wouldn't be able to escape alive, it would kill its babies or destroy the eggs prior to hatching. This little kitten was very fond of Amy, clearly indicating that it had grown up by her side. Such an affectionate magic beast would surely become the ideal helper of its owner in the future. It had absolute loyalty toward its owner, and was a heavily sought-after companion for everyone. "It's not a kitten, it's actually a duckling. Also, it's not some magic beast, it's Ugly Duckling," Amy replied with a serious expression. Ugly Duckling?" Dennis faltered upon hearing that. No matter how he looked at it, it was clearly a cat that bore no resemblance to a duck whatsoever. Furthermore, it looked quite adorable as well in his opinion. It was not ugly in the slightest. All of the other mercenaries also wore peculiar expressions, unable to keep up with this little girl's thought process. However, it appeared that she didn't even know what magic beasts were, and had most likely always treated this thing as a normal kitten. After all, Mag was only a chef, and even they couldn't identify what kind of magic beast this was, so there was no way Mag could know what it was, either. But I can tell you all a secret about Ugly Duckling. You have to promise to keep the secret before I tell you, though. Amy looked at everyone with a mysterious expression. Secret? All of the mercenaries were intrigued. Could it be that Amy actually knew what this kitten was? Thus, all of them agreed to keep the secret. Even Evan inched closer to them, eavesdropping on the conversation. Ugly Duckling is not actually an ordinary duckling. Amy looked at the intrigued mercenaries and lowered her voice as she continued, it's actually a little swan. When it grows up, it'll become a beautiful white swan. It'll be able to fly into the sky then. Ha! All of the mercenaries were dumbstruck on hearing that. First, she was telling them that this kitten was a duckling, and now, she was telling them that it was a swan? No matter how they looked at it, it bore no resemblance to a swan at all. Mr. Mag, your pet killed this mutant purple golden mink, so it belongs to you. Its hide can be sold at the mercenary union for a good price. Sivir looked at Mag with a calm smile. Dennis and the others were feeling quite envious, but they didn't state any objections to Sivir's decision. Evan stepped forward and argued coldly, Sivir, we were the ones who engineered everything to trap this purple golden mink. This guy was only lucky, why should we give him such a precious mutant purple golden mink hide? Yeah, big sister Sivir. You guys did all of the work, and the purple golden mink could have been frightened to death by you and Master Evan in the end. They had nothing to do with this, so why do they deserve the mink hide? Eva also chimed in to support Evan. She turned to him with love-struck eyes and tried to approach him. All of the mercenaries turned to Evan and Eva with surprise on their faces. They had witnessed everything that had taken place, so they knew that Eva's argument was completely implausible. Following its transformation, the purple golden mink could outrun even Sivir's boomerang, and Evan's magic posed no threat to it. How could it have been frightened to death by those two? However, Eva was the youngest member of their mercenary squad, so she had always been treated like a delicate little sister. Furthermore, as the only healer in their squad, everyone had been treated by her at some point. As such, they didn't want to refute her, and could only turn to Sivir. As for what Evan had said, they were indeed the ones who had engineered the trap for the purple golden mink, but it was also true that the orange kitten was the one that had killed the mink. In doing so, it had saved Eva's life. That had to have been a factor of consideration for Sivir, thus prompting her to give the purple golden mink to Mag. However, what they didn't anticipate was how ungrateful Eva was toward her saviors. Thus, the atmosphere became rather awkward. Mag turned to Evan and Eva with a cold expression. These two were a match made in heaven, both of them were absolute scum. If it weren't for him and Amy, that mutant purple golden mink would definitely have killed Eva. No one else noticed this detail, but Mag had clearly seen that Evan had a chance to attack the purple golden mink, a chance that he refrained from using. As a third-tier magic caster, even if he couldn't completely trap the purple golden mink, he would definitely have been able to create some obstacles in order to buy time for his fellow mercenaries. However, he didn't do that. Instead, he stood on the tree as a bystander, and even wore a smile on his face as he did so. If Mag and Amy had been the only ones on the carriage, then Mag would have only thought that Evan was a petty man. However, there was also a Fang girl who absolutely adored him on the carriage with them, but he was prepared to watch her die and seemed to be enjoying the show. That clearly illustrated what a piece of scum he was. And now, this scummy couple was trying to steal his spoils of war? If he were only dealing with Sivir and the others, Mag would perhaps be more polite and split up the mutant purple golden mink based on everyone's efforts. After all, that was how mercenary squads normally split up their spoils of war. However, he changed his mind. He would rather feed the mink to a dog than give some to these two. Big sister flat chest, do you want to eat this big rat? I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. I can ask father to skin it, then you can try and eat it raw and tell me if it tastes good. Amy looked at Eva with expectant eyes. She then swung Mag's arm from side to side, and implored, Father, we should give this big rat to big sister flat chest. I, Eva glowered at Amy, and was at a loss for words. You just so happen to have a magic beast pet that's a natural predator to the purple golden mink, and it's just a pathetic little kitten. Without it, would you have even been able to touch the purple golden mink? If it weren't for our Rose mercenary squad, you wouldn't even have seen the mink, let alone kill it. You should know your place and assess just how little effort you put in throughout this process. Evan turned to Mag with a cold expression. His handsome features had turned quite dark, and he was brandishing his wand to exert pressure on Mag Siver's brows furrowed, and she was just about to say something when Mag stepped forward with a mocking smile, and retorted, "How little effort I put in?" The purple golden mink was frightened to death by Amy's ugly duckling. Furthermore, it had been completely unscathed, and following its transformation, it became faster than all of you. Even if I wasn't the one that had set up the traps, so what? And what does it have to do with you? Do you think you put in a lot of effort by standing on the tree branch and spectating with a cold smile as your fellow mercenaries were plunged into peril? A panicked expression immediately flashed across Evan's face as he unconsciously took a step backward. Eva's face also paled upon hearing that. She could still recall the smile on Evan's face as he stood on that tree branch, and now that the truth had been revealed by Mag, her attempts at self-consolation were completely crushed. Thus, she turned to Evan with a hint of confusion and hurt in her eyes. All of the mercenaries' expressions also changed upon hearing that. The situation just then had been too urgent, so no one had noticed what Evan was doing. However, thinking back now, Evan did indeed have many opportunities to stop that purple golden mink, but he did nothing throughout the process. If Mag's accusations rang true, then just what was Evan doing? They didn't even dare to delve into that train of thought too deeply. Mutual trust was the glue that held a mercenary squad together. If they couldn't even trust one of their comrades, then the consequences could prove to be catastrophic in the future. Mag wore a mocking smile as he looked at Evangelist. Defeating someone with words and reason was the most convincing way to win a battle. Mag Alex's forte lay in physical battles, while Mag excelled in wars of words. However, he wouldn't stoop as low as to hurl verbal insults at a piece of scum like Evan. Instead, he was crushing him in a graceful and eloquent manner, that was a sign of true skill. To a team like theirs, trust was an extremely important element. If there was a potential backstabber lurking in the team, how was anyone supposed to rely on them during a battle? Siver's expression had also become quite grave as a contemplative expression appeared in her eyes. Back when she was pursuing the purple golden mink, she had also been confused with regard to why Evan had refrained from attacking. It appeared that Mag had seen something, and Eva's reaction clearly reaffirmed his accusations. As such, her heart was feeling quite heavy. Evan forced himself to calm down before issuing a heated retort. Nonsense! During the battle, I unleashed an ice wall spell, then an ice spear spell, but I didn't think that the mutant purple golden mink would be powerful enough to destroy my magic. Hence, I was preparing to unleash an intermediate spell to bring it down. However, it was too fast, and I didn't have time to unleash the spell before it escaped from my effective attack range. You're just trying to sow discord among our squad. So Master Evan was preparing an intermediate spell, not just spectating. Has he mastered even an intermediate spell? That's so cool! Eva's eyes lit up again as she looked at Evan. All of the disappointment in her heart was instantly wiped away, and she turned to Mag with a fierce expression. Exactly. What gives an outsider like you the right to speak ill about Master Evan? He's clearly not the type of person you proclaim him to be. Mag was feeling rather speechless as he looked at Eva. This woman was completely hopeless. All right, that's enough. Let's keep going, we have to get to the illusionary mist valley before noon. Siver looked into Eva's eyes with a serious expression, and said, Eva, Mr. Mag and the others saved your life just then. You have to be grateful to your benefactors, that is the mercenary way, and a value that our Rose mercenary squad has always upheld. I hope you can remember that. Eva looked at Sivir and opened her mouth, but lowered her head in silence in the end. Evan glanced at Sivir before getting onto the carriage. He aimed a vicious glance at Mag before also closing his eyes in silence. All of the other mercenaries also got onto the carriage. No one said anything further about this depressing situation. Sam made his way toward Mag with a smile, and offered, "Mr. Mag, do you need me to skin this mink? I'm pretty good at that kind of stuff." "Thanks for your offer, but there's no need. As a chef, I'm also pretty good at this." Mag shook his head with a smile. He also refrained from saying anything else on the matter. After all, what did it matter to him that this scummy couple was harming each other? He drew his sharp bull-slaying blade and began to skin the mink. Soon, a complete mink hide had been skinned with no blood staining the fur, nor any excessive blood and flesh on the back. The golden hide was very smooth and soft, with a beautiful streak of purple extending all the way to the tail down the middle, emanating a metallic sheen. An ordinary purple golden mink hide could fetch around 500 gold coins. However, such a perfect mutant purple golden mink hide could fetch at least 1,000 gold coins or even more. Mag really did need some money. With the hiatus that he was taking, he would be missing out on hundreds of thousands of copper coins in restaurant earnings. As such, he didn't mind having an external source of income to supplement that loss. "That's so impressive, it's even cleaner than if I were to skin it. You'd definitely be able to sell it for a good price." Sam looked at Mag with amazement in his eyes as he handed over a water pouch for Mag to clean his hands and blade. "Thank you." Mag carried the hide and the skinned purple golden mink onto the carriage before sitting down in a corner with Amy in his arms. The carriage continued onward. Eva looked at the gory skinned purple golden mink, and reflexively scooted away with a hint of fear and concern in her eyes. What if this guy actually forced her to eat the big rat? "Mr. Mag, are we going to be eating this purple golden mink for lunch?" Dennis asked. "I was planning on that, but a certain someone said that if Ugly Duckling could catch this rat, then she'd eat it raw. We'll have to ask her for her opinion before deciding if we can have this thing for lunch. After all, she reserved it in advance." Mag turned to Eva with a benevolent smile as he asked, "Isn't that right, Madam Eva?" However, his smile looked like the smile of a demon in Eva's eyes. The grisly-skinned purple golden mink made her want to puke, and she didn't even want to touch it, let alone eat it raw. She was really regretting the stupid bet that she had made now. "No, I don't want to eat something so terrifying." Eva shook her head with pale countenance. "Big sister flat chest, you're making me very disappointed. How could you go back on your promise like that? I still wanted to know if the big rat tastes good raw." Amy looked at Eva with a disappointed expression as she held Ugly Duckling in her arms. Eva's cheeks were flushed with humiliation, but she still shook her head firmly. She was not going to eat the purple golden mink raw no matter what. "Looks like we can have it for lunch, then." Mag smiled as he looked at the purple golden mink's supple flesh with an expectant gaze. He had tasted roasted bamboo rat in his past life, and he could still recall its succulent flavor. The purple golden mink's flesh was clearly of an even higher standard, and would taste very good roasted. With his extensive practice in the test field for the god of cookery, he had developed exemplary mastery in controlling heat and condiments. As such, Mag was confident that he could cook all types of roast meat to a high standard. Even though it wouldn't taste as good as the roast beef kebabs, it shouldn't be too bad. "That's the first time I've heard of roasting purple golden mink. There are 10 of us in total, though, so one purple golden mink won't be enough to go around. How about we catch some more prey along the way?" "What would you like?" Dennis asked with a smile. "Beef would be best," Mag replied. "Will normal wild cows do?" Sam asked. "Sure." Mag nodded in response. "Easy. There's a mountain with a lot of wild cows on the way to the illusionary Mist Valley. I'll get you one once we get there," Sam promised with a smile. "Thank you." Mag's eyes lit up. It sure was good to travel with experienced and knowledgeable hunters. Ugly Duckling lay in Amy's lap for a while before rolling around on the purple golden mink hide. It either really liked the hide, or it was showing off its spoils of war. While passing by a mountain, Sam instructed Monkey to stop the carriage. He and Dennis went into the forest, and Dennis soon emerged with a large black wild cow on his shoulders. The cow had all 4 legs bound, and was looking around with horror in its eyes, too scared to even move. Squad leader, the illusionary mist valley is just up ahead. How about we have lunch before continuing? Dennis asked as he tossed the cow onto the ground. All right. It was probably going to take a long time just to skin and dissect this large cow, so Sivir decided to agree to Dennis' suggestion. There's a stream just up ahead. I'll clean up the cow there. Mag rose to his feet and pointed at a nearby stream. The water in the stream was very clear, and it all flowed into a calm pond, which reflected the blue sky like a mirror. All right. Dennis hoisted the cow up with one hand before making his way over to the pond. The carriage also stopped near the stream. Mr. Mag, do you need our help killing this thing? Dennis asked as he kicked the struggling cow onto the ground. No need. It would be great if you could get me some firewood, though. Leave the rest to me. Mag shook his head before making his way over to the cow. He grabbed it by the horns with his left hand and slit its throat with his bull-slaying blade, which he was holding in his right hand. Blood gushed onto the ground as he took a glance at Evan, who was still sitting on the carriage. Evan also happened to be looking at Mag. Their eyes met, upon which his heart skipped a beat for some reason. He could see killing intent in Mag's eyes, and even though it was clearly a cow that had been slain, a hint of fear welled up in his heart for some reason. Eva, are you not coming? Sivir asked Eva as she jumped down from the carriage. I'll have some other food for lunch. I definitely won't eat rat meat or anything cooked by that guy. Eva shook her head with a resolute expression. I'll go pick some wild fruits. Evan jumped down from the carriage and rushed into the forest, quickly disappearing from view. He clearly didn't want to taste Mag's cooking, either. Furthermore, the glance that Mag had directed at him earlier had struck him with an indescribable sense of fear, making him want to get away from Mag. Mag didn't object to it. He didn't want to cook for them anyway, so this was ideal. After draining the cow of blood, a thought suddenly occurred to Mag. He turned to Sam, and said, Mr. Sam, you seem to be very familiar with this area, would you be able to get me a bamboo stalk? I want to make some skewers for beef kebabs. Sure, I'll get one for you right away. Sam nodded before turning to climb up the nearby mountain. Beef kebabs? Mr. Mag, beef should be eaten in large mouthfuls. Making it into kebabs will take away from the effect, won't it? Dennis was a little concerned. Don't worry, there'll be enough kebabs for everyone. This cow definitely has enough beef to go around. Mag smiled as he began to dissect the cow. His blade glided through its flesh, not coming into contact with its bones at any point in time. His motions were smooth, efficient, and elegant, putting on a brilliant display of mastery. Those are some really impressive knife skills. It must have taken him many years to get to that level. Sivir was full of praise at the sight of Mag's blade proficiency. Her eyes glazed over slightly as she looked at Mag's expression of rapt focus and concentration. She couldn't help but be reminded of someone else when she looked at Mag. The surrounding mercenaries also wore expressions of praise and amazement. Perhaps Mag wouldn't be able to beat them in a fight, but his expert bladesmanship and control were exemplary. Father, can I also have a lot of kebabs? Amy asked expectantly. Yes, you can have as many as you want. Mag nodded with a doting expression. After dissecting the cow, Mag made a rough estimate of everyone's capacity for food. Aside from the ribeye beef, he also sliced off another 2 large slabs of tenderloin beef before washing it all in the stream. He then began to pull out all types of condiments from his backpack, and there was even a foldable kebab oven in there. This was something that Mag had purchased after extensive bartering. He could find ingredients for roast meat in the wilderness, but he had to prepare his own oven, which had to live up to his standards. Otherwise, a lack of proper cooking utensils could ruin the dish. Mr. Mag, all other mercenaries pack as little as possible and only carry the bare essentials with them, but you're carrying a kitchen with you. Dennis looked at Mag with a peculiar expression. Well, I have my daughter with me, so I'll naturally have to prepare some more things, Mag replied in a justified manner. He poured a cup of water for Amy from a water jug before feeding Ugly Duckling some water from the stream. Then, he pulled out a large paper bag to marinate the beef in. You sure are a good father, Mr. Mag. My son is about the same age as your daughter, and he's constantly nagging me to take him into the wilderness, but I've never taken him even once. Scott sighed with emotion. He'll know what you're a good father when he grows up, Mr. Scott. Mag turned to Scott with a smile. After all, not everyone had a fourth-tier magic caster as a child. As such, taking them into the wilderness would incur a massive risk. I hope so. A smile also appeared on Scott's face. Mag began to prepare the beef in what was clearly a thoroughly rehearsed process. All of the mercenaries sat on the ground and chatted among themselves while looking at Mag with surprised expressions. They had never seen anyone prepare roast meat in the wilderness, and the complexity of the process came as a shock to them. After all, if they wanted to roast meat, they would simply brush some oil over it before placing it over a fire. Right before the meat was fully cooked, they'd sprinkle a pinch of salt over it, and that would be the extent of the condiments applied. Sometimes, the meat was tasty, and other times, it would be overcooked. However, the flavor wasn't really important to them. In the wilderness, safety and sustenance were the key considerations. If they made such extensive preparations as Mag did every time they wanted to have a meal, they wouldn't have any time to do their missions. However, they had never been treated to a meal cooked by a professional chef in the wilderness, so all of them were thoroughly looking forward to it. Sam quickly returned with a green bamboo stalk. Under Mag's instructions, he chopped the stalk into skewers, and skewered the marinated beef and purple golden mink meat. The remaining wood was thrown into the fire, while a makeshift roasting frame was constructed from rocks. The mercenaries had all stopped talking, and their eyes were fixed on Mag. Watching him cook was like watching a spectacular performance, each and every step was a brilliant spectacle. They didn't understand why a simple roast meat dish required so many complex procedures, but they were all looking forward to the end product. He's just showing off, there's no way the kebabs would be any good. Eva washed down a mouthful of coarse cornbread with some water as she glowered at Mag from the carriage. Evan returned to the carriage with a few mandarins in his hands, 2 of which he passed to Eva with a smile as he said, "Have some mandarins, Eva, I just picked them." "Thank you, Master Evangelist." Eva accepted the mandarins with a joyful expression, and cradled them carefully to her chest as if she had received a pair of precious treasures. "You're welcome." A hint of disgust flashed through Evan's eyes, but he still maintained his smile. However, his brows furrowed as he caught sight of Mag, who was being surrounded by his intrigued fellow mercenaries. His gaze fell on Sivir, and veins began to bulge on his forehead as he slowly clenched his fists. Everything was prepared. Mag tested the temperature of the flames with his hand before placing a bunch of kebabs over the roasting frame. The beef began to sizzle over the red-hot flames, and its surface quickly began to change color. Oil began to bubble and fizz as the delicious aroma of beef wafted through the air. The mercenaries' eyes lit up as they caught a whiff of that scent, and they couldn't help but inhale deeply to capture more of the aroma. Mag was tending to over 20 kebabs at once, but his motions were still calm and unhurried. When the kebabs were cooked to about medium well, he began to apply the sauces that he had mixed in advance over their surface. The sauce made the aroma of the beef even more alluring as the kebabs were placed back over the fire. "That smells so good." Dennis was staring at the kebabs with incredulity in his eyes. "What an alluring smell! How can roast beef smell like this?" An entranced expression appeared on Sivir's face. This aroma! How is this possible? Evan and Eva were also stunned as they looked at Mag's kebabs. Wow, it smells so good! The kebabs look like they're really delicious. Amy looked at the kebabs over the fire with an expectant gaze. Ugly Duckling's interest had also been piqued. Its ears perked up and it craned its neck, trying to identify the source of this alluring aroma. The sound of involuntary gulping began to undulate as the mercenaries stared at the kebabs on the roasting frame. They were struggling to suppress the urge to pounce on the kebabs like wild animals. All right, the first kebab will be for my adorable little Amy. Mag picked up a kebab from the middle and handed it to Amy with a smile. Thank you, Father. Amy's eyes immediately lit up as she put Ugly Duckling onto the ground before joyfully accepting the kebab. It's very hot, so blow on it first before eating, Mag cautioned. All right. Amy nodded obediently as she blew on the kebab with a careful expression. She then opened her little mouth and bit down on the topmost cube of beef. All of the mercenaries looked on with bated breath. The succulent cube of beef was bit open, and Amy's intricate features immediately lit up. Her bright blue eyes shimmered with joy as the indescribably delicious flavor exploded in her mouth. She quickly chewed on the beef before swallowing, leaving a trace of residual oil and sauce on the corners of her lips. Gulp. The sound of gulping was heard once again. Is it really that delicious? This is torture. All of the mercenaries looked at each other with slightly awkward expressions, but they soon all turned to stare at Mag's kebabs with yearning in their eyes. That little brat must be faking her reaction. It definitely doesn't taste good. The mandarins brought to me by Master Evan are the most delicious things in this world. Eva faltered slightly upon seeing that, but she soon convinced herself that her mandarins were better. She placed a section of mandarin into her mouth, but was struck by the feeling that it seemed to be a little sour. Evan also wrenched his gaze away from Mag's kebabs, and surreptitiously gulped as he also had some mandarin. Come and have a kebab, everyone. The roasting will take some time, but these ones are ready. Mag smiled as he distributed the kebabs to everyone. There was just enough for 2 per person. He also placed a kebab in a clean little bowl for Ugly Duckling, which was desperately crying for a taste, before putting a new batch of kebabs over the flames. Oh my god! How could there be such delicious roast beef in this world? It's simply incredible. Dennis bit off 3 cubes of beef in a single bite as he stared at the kebab in his hand with incredulity in his eyes. This must be food for the gods. How could it be so delicious? How could roast beef be so tender? And this flavor is ridiculously good. Sydney, who was perched on a tree branch, simply couldn't stop eating. He closed his eyes to savor the taste and felt as if he were dreaming. Scott and the others also wore similar expressions. Just one bit was enough for them to be completely immersed in the kebab's delicious flavor. They found it incredible that a small beef kebab could hold such allure. Sivir looked at everyone before her gaze was also drawn to the kebab in her hand. She blew on it gently before biting off the top cube of beef. The beef was still a little hot, and she hadn't even chewed yet, but the flavor of the sauce had already captivated her taste buds. She began chewing, and the delicious roast beef instantly melted in her mouth. The flavor of the marinating condiments had already been sealed into the beef, and it combined with the rich taste of the sauce to create an irresistible combination. Sivir couldn't help but close her eyes in bliss as she savored the kebab. The ribeye beef was extremely fresh and tender. The marbling didn't make the beef excessively greasy. Instead, it simply made the texture even more tender, and seemingly gave the beef layers of flavors to savor. The sauce was very rich, but didn't overpower the natural taste of the beef. Instead, it simply worked to bring out as much flavor from the beef as possible. Was it delicious? No. It was ridiculously delicious. Sivir felt as if she had been teleported to a large grassy plain. Herds of wild cows took leisurely strolls over the lush grass. There was a little girl sitting on a cow's back and red-haired man carrying a long saber following along behind her. The little girl's joyful giggles could be heard throughout the entire grassy plain, while the man wore a warm smile even though his face was riddled with scars. Night fell, and they set up a fire. The man began to roast large slabs of beef over the flames, while the little girl sat beside him with an expectant look. The man handed her a slab of slightly charred beef, and she devoured it with a joyful expression. That was the most delicious beef in this world. A tear slid down the corner of Sivir's eye. She turned away and surreptitiously brushed the tear away. She looked at the kebab in her hand, and then at Mag and Amy, who were happily enjoying kebabs of their own. She could sense the aura of paternal love within the kebabs, and it struck her in the most delicate part of her heart. She exhaled gently as if she were blowing on the kebab, and a smile appeared on her face. She bit off another cube of beef and closed her eyes, basking in its delicious flavor as well as the paternal love that had been sorely missing from her life for many years. One kebab after another was fully cooked before being distributed to the eagerly waiting mercenaries. Blissful smiles appeared on everyone's faces, and they couldn't help but praise Mag for his brilliant cooking. Mag also wore a smile on his face. He was struck by a sense of accomplishment at the sight of everyone being won over by his cuisine. This wonderful feeling was something that he experienced every day in this world, but had been completely missing in his past life. Try this kebab, Evan. It's incredibly delicious. Scott made his way over to the carriage and passed a kebab to Evan with a smile. I won't eat strange things like this. Evan swatted the kebab aside with a dark expression. The kebab landed tip first, pinning itself onto a large tree nearby. Scott knew that Evan was still in a foul mood from what had happened earlier, so he didn't say anything. Instead, he offered the kebab in his other hand to Eva as he said, Eva, would you like to have a taste? I definitely won't eat anything made by that guy even if I starve to death. The mandarins picked by Master Evan are the most delicious things in this world. Eva shook her head with a resolute expression as she cradled the mandarins in her hands. Poor children, they've made a very stupid choice. They won't have another opportunity to taste father's cooking ever again. Amy looked at Evan and Evan with a slightly sympathetic expression before taking another large bite of beef, upon which a joyful smile reappeared on her face. Mag looked at the kebab that was pinned to the tree, and was feeling rather forlorn that the fruit of his labor had been wasted like that. However, a mocking smile appeared on his face as he turned to look at Eva and Evan, both of whom were gulping involuntarily. It had to be quite painful for them to deny their cravings like that, right? After more than an hour, almost half of the cow had been consumed. Mag cooked almost without rest the entire time, and only got to have a few kebabs at the end. The 2-centimeter cubes were perfect for a mouthful, and the tender beef was enveloped in rich sauces, melting to create the most delicious flavor in his mouth. All of his taste buds and every cell in his body were captivated by the flavor as an overwhelming sense of satisfaction welled up in his heart. This was by far the best beef that he had ever had. This is just the most ordinary wild beef. If we change it to premium ironhide bull beef, the texture and flavor would be even better. This is pretty much a dress rehearsal for the release of my new dish, and the reaction was quite good. Looks like this will become a popular dish in the restaurant. A smile appeared on Mag's face as he looked at the kebab in his hand. Furthermore, he had repaid everyone for taking Amy and himself to the illusionary Mist Valley, as well as for the purple golden mink hide. After all, each person had to have had more than 10 kebabs. Mag had already decided to set the price at 300 copper coins per kebab. Such delicious kebabs had to be more expensive than tofu pudding at least. This is the best meal I've ever had during my years as a mercenary. Dennis expressed genuine praise as he wiped the oil and sauce from his lips. Verb. This is the best meal I've ever had, period. Scott burped with a bashful smile. Mr. Mag, can you join our Rose Mercenary Squad? You can be responsible for cooking and leave everything else to us. Monkey jumped down from a nearby tree branch and looked at Mag with an expectant gaze. That would be perfect. That way, we'd be able to have delicious food every day, even if we're out in the wilderness. Sam clapped his hands together with elation. All of the other mercenaries also looked at Mag with anticipation in their eyes. Even Sivir was quite tempted by that prospect. My apologies, but my main occupation lies in restaurant management and cooking. Sourcing ingredients is not a common activity that I engage in, so I won't be able to join your mercenary squad. If you'd like to eat my food again, you can come to the Aiden Square and look for Mamie Restaurant, that's my restaurant. Mag shook his head with a smile. He had no intention of becoming a mercenary. I see, all of the mercenaries were quite disappointed to hear that. Monkey scratched his head and opened his mouth to say something. All right, Mr. Mag still has to look after little Amy, so becoming a mercenary clearly isn't a viable option for him. Besides, we don't have time to spend 2 hours on a picnic in the wilderness every day. Let's go to visit Mr. Mag's restaurant on our days off. Sivir smiled as she turned to Mag, and praised, Mr. Mag, you truly are an exceptional chef. You're far too kind. Mag nodded modestly, but his mood had improved significantly from her compliment. All right, then I'll definitely go to Mr. Mag's restaurant on my day off. We're all friends now, can you give me a discount? Monkey asked with a hopeful smile. I never offer discounts to my customers, but I can ensure that you'll feel like every copper coin you spend in my restaurant is worth it, Mag replied with a smile. If someone else said that, I'd think that they were bluffing, but I believe in you, Mr. Mag. Dennis nodded with an earnest expression. All right, we've wasted a lot of time here already, it's time for us to keep going. It'll only take half an hour for us to get to the illusionary mist valley from here. Everyone, take a rest and prepare for battle. The smile faded from Sivir's face as she issued stern instructions. Yes, the mercenary squad responded in unison. They checked through their own equipment before loading the rest of the cow onto the carriage and prepared to set off. Evan said that he was going to do some scouting first and went on ahead. Mag began to pack up his cooking utensils and condiments before washing his hands and making his way back onto the carriage with Amy and Ugly Duckling. They were about to get to the illusionary mist valley, which meant that their battle was about to begin. He was determined to capture an ironhide bull today as the mission reward was simply too alluring. Ding! The system must give you a stern warning, the ironhide bull capturing mission must be completed by you alone. If you rely on someone else's help to complete the mission, the system will deem it as mission failure and hand down the punishment. The system's stern, implacable voice sounded. All right, I get it. I'm not preparing to enlist their help, anyway. With so many of them here, it'll be difficult to split the spoils of war. Mag rolled his eyes internally. From what he had seen, he could deduce that Sivir was the most powerful member of the Rose mercenary squad. However, even her power level hadn't reached the 4th tier yet. She was already quite powerful for someone her age, but, objectively speaking, she wouldn't even be as powerful as Amy in a battle. The system must give you another stern warning, the use of irregular weapons is prohibited during the course of the mission. The system's voice became even more stern. Mr. Sam, how are the ironhide bulls distributed in the illusionary mist valley? Are they found all over the place? Mag chose to ignore the system this time. Of course not. Ironhide bulls will appear in the illusionary mist valley, but due to excessive hunting in the past few years, they've become exceedingly rare, so it's down to luck whether you'll encounter one or not. Also, the illusionary mist valley is a gigantic place, and is constantly enshrouded in mist, so visibility is very low. Aside from ironhide bulls, there are also other magic beasts that dwell there, making it a very perilous place. Those unfamiliar with its terrain could easily get lost in the mist, which would often prove lethal. Sam shook his head as he looked at Mag with a serious expression, and advised, as such, I suggest you don't take little Amy deep into the illusionary mist valley. All right, I'll be sure to keep that in mind. Mag nodded with a grim expression. It appeared that the situation in the illusionary mist valley was a bit more complex than he had thought. Oh, by the way, I think I forgot something back there. Can we stop for a while so I can go grab it? A thought suddenly occurred to Mag just as the carriage had set off. Do you need me to turn the carriage around for you? Monkey asked. That's all right, it's not too far from here. I'll be back soon. Mag put down his backpack and retracted his steps after jumping down from the carriage. He had spent 100 gold coins for that portable oven, so it would be a shame to leave it behind. After rounding the corner, Mag was just about to make his way toward the oven when he noticed a figure standing next to a tree nearby. He had plucked the kebab down from the tree and was looking at it with a conflicted expression. That figure was none other than Evan, who had said that he was going on ahead to do some scouting. He was holding the kebab that he had just plucked from the tree, and was sniffing at it with an entranced look. His attention was entirely focused on the kebab, so he didn't notice Mag in the distance. Do I eat it or not? Is it really as delicious as they say? Evan wore a conflicted expression on his face. After hesitating momentarily, he gave in and bit off a cube of beef, upon which his eyes immediately lit up. The beef was still slightly warm, and its tender texture had been perfectly preserved by the rich delicious sauce. Beef that was this delicious had gone beyond his realm of imagination. Is this really beef? This flavor is incredible. How could there be such delicious food in this world? How could such delicious beef exist? Evan roared internally. He had completely forgotten the fact that this beef had been cooked by the man who had thoroughly humiliated him. He had also forgotten that this kebab had been swatted into a tree by him. Such delicious beef was absolutely unique in this world. Does it taste good? A voice suddenly sounded. It's delicious. Evan nodded with a genuine expression. However, his entire body then immediately stiffened as he turned around to discover Mag looking at with a mocking smile. Deathly silence ensued as Evan held the half-eaten kebab with an expression akin to that of a deer in headlights while Mag looked back at him. He had aimed all those insults at Mag and swatted the beef kebab flying. He had vowed that he wouldn't eat Mag's cooking, but now, he had snuck back to taste the kebab that he had swatted into a tree. Furthermore, he had been caught red-handed by Mag, and most embarrassing of all, he had admitted that the kebab was delicious. Evan wanted to kill himself or crawl into a crevice in the ground and stay there forever. Enjoy your meal, then. I'm off now, they're still waiting for me. Mag had gotten the answer he desired, so he packed up his oven before departing. This feeling was even more satisfying than if he were to slap Evan in the face. This bastard, Evan glowered at Mag's departing figure, and the veins on the back of wand-wielding hand bulged. However, he hesitated momentarily before putting down his wand. In such close quarters, SAHDR and the others would definitely be able to detect a battle. Furthermore, they were familiar enough with him to be able to easily identify his magic. Mag also removed his hand from the hilt of his blade. As he expected, Evan didn't dare to attack him. However, he still quickened his pace a little en route back to the carriage. After all, everyone was still waiting for him. Thus, Evan was the only one left on the scene. He wanted to throw the kebab away in disgust, but his hand froze in mid-air. After a long period of internal conflict, he finally took another bite. I'm so mad. But, it's so delicious. How could this beef be so delicious? Evan felt as if he were in heaven and hell at the same time as he finished the kebab in his hand. As he tossed aside the empty skewer, he was left wanting more. A conflicted expression reappeared on his face. If that bastard told SAHDR about what he had done, he would have no dignity left in front of her. What's up, Mr. Mag? Did you pick up some money on the way back? You look very pleased. Dennis looked at the amused expression on Mag's face with curiosity. I didn't pick up any money, but I did see a greedy little monkey, which I found to be quite funny. Mag shook his head with a smile, and didn't reveal what had happened. It wasn't that he was trying to protect Evan's dignity, it was just that he simply didn't feel like wasting time on such a trivial matter. It wasn't me. Monkey turned to defend himself with a serious expression, drawing raucous laughter from everyone on the carriage. Thus, they continued their journey. Sam could see that Mag hadn't given up on his plan to enter the illusionary mist valley, so he gave Mag a detailed introduction of what he had to look out for in the valley, as well as all types of life-saving methods he could employ in dire situations. Mag listened carefully and committed everything to memory. Aside from Ironhide bulls, 5th-tier magic beasts would occasionally appear in the illusionary mist valley. Those were still extremely dangerous, and perhaps even lethal to Mag and Amy as they currently were. After all, Amy was still only a 4th-tier magic caster, and the Oracle Stone's enhancement effect was far from reliable. Thus, it was a good idea to listen to an experienced hunter like Sam. Half an hour later, the carriage arrived at the foot of a valley that was shrouded in mist. Sivert turned to Mag, and said, "Mr. Mag, we'll be parking our carriage here. If you need a ride back to Chaos City tonight, you can wait for us here." "All right, thank you." Mag helped Amy and Ugly Duckling down from the carriage and nodded with a smile. It had taken them so long to get here, so he really did require a ride back to the city. The mercenaries got down from the carriage and packed up their equipment before bidding farewell to Mag and Amy. Monkey led the way into the valley, and soon disappeared from view. The rest of the mercenaries went in after him. "That bastard is definitely going to die if he enters the illusionary mist valley." Evan had also joined the group by now, and he glowered at Mag before entering the valley. Sivert turned to Mag with a serious expression, and said, "If you only require a certain cut of meat from the Ironhide bull, I can perhaps help you. There's no need for you to take such a risk. Amy is still just a child. Everyone has something that they need to do. As a father, I'll be sure to take good care of her." Mag placed a hand on Amy's head as he gave a resolute response. Sivert couldn't help but recall her memories of the man who liked to place his hand on her head. He had always taken good care of her and struck her with a sense of security and reliability, just as Mag did. She nodded, and said, "I wish you good luck." Then, she entered the valley after her fellow squad members. "Bye-bye, big sister Sivert." Amy waved farewell to Sivert. "Goodbye." Sivert also waved at them before disappearing into the mist. "Father, are we going to catch a big cow in that valley?" Amy looked up at Mag with excitement in her eyes. "That's right. That's our most important target for today. We're going to make even more delicious kebabs with the big cow in this valley." Mag nodded with a smile. "Even more delicious? More than what we had for lunch?" Amy's eyes lit up with disbelief. "That's right, even better than what we had for lunch." Mag nodded in confirmation as he led Amy toward the valley with her little hand in his. At the same time, he said internally, "System, can you get me a GPS or a compass?" In front of Mamie Restaurant, Ricky sat on the stairs, and yelled, "It's still not open? Just how long is he going to run away from me for? I know that my Ricky's rotisserie is renowned throughout the entire Aiden Square, but I didn't think that this guy would abandon his restaurant just to run away from me. Is this guy actually retarded?" The customers outside were all looking at Ricky as if they were appraising a mentally disabled child. Ricky was enraged by everyone's condescending looks, and he gritted his teeth as he announced loudly, "If that's the case, then I'm going to up the stakes. I'm going to bet all of my dignity on this contest. If I lose, I'll kowtow to him 10 times and call him daddy 3 times. If he loses, he has to do the same thing." "Oh? That sounds interesting." The customers that were about to leave were all intrigued upon hearing that.